A night tide freezes mid-motion. Ursa, a fisherwoman, wakes to find her village silent, and the waves hovering like glass. The moon hangs too still above the fjord, and every breath she exhales sounds like it's breaking something delicate. The air feels heavy, thick with a kind of a tension she can't name. When she steps outside her hut, the frost crunches beneath her bare feet, yet no echo answers back. The ocean is turned to a mirror. No movement, no whisper, only a perfect reflection of a sky that refuses to blink. She walks toward the shore, her body trembling, not from cold but from a sense that the world has forgotten how to move. The net she left drying the night before is suspended mid-sway, frozen in an invisible breeze. A gull hovers above them, wings stretched wide, eyes open, utterly still. Ursa raises a hand and touches the bird's feathers. They are solid as carved ice. Panic prickles her skin. She calls out the name of her brother, Bjorn, whose hut stands a few steps from hers, but her voice falls short, as if the sound itself has been caught in the stillness. She runs. Her breath turns to crystals in the air, hanging behind her like beads of glass. The village of Nordjord lies in a frozen tableau. Doors half open, smoke frozen in the chimneys like sculpted marble, a dog leaping toward nothing, its paws inches above the ground. Ursa falls to her knees in the center of the path, pressing her palms against the unmoving snow. It doesn't melt. Even her tears freeze before they reach the ground. The silence feels ancient, as though it predates time itself. She can hear her own heartbeat, slow and deliberate, like the only sound left in creation. She forces herself to breathe deeply, to remember what the elders used to whisper when strange things happen along the coast. When the sea stops, her grandmother had said, "Listen for the one who still moves." Ursa listens. Nothing. Only that steady pulse in her chest, too loud, too alive. She decides to head toward the lighthouse at the edge of the cliffs, the tallest point in the village, where the sea wind usually howls. If anything could resist the stillness, it would be the wind itself. Her steps crunch against the ice, echoing faintly now, as though the sound returns reluctantly. The path to the lighthouse winds between the storage huts, their ropes and barrels suspended in midair from the moment of stillness. She stops when she sees Bjorn's figure by the pier. He stands upright, his hand gripping the oar of their small fishing boat. His face is calm, but his eyes are wrong. They glimmer faintly with a color that doesn't belong to the living world. Pale silver, like the moon reflected in deep water. Ursa reaches him, shaking him by the shoulders. He doesn't move, yet she swears she feels warmth beneath his skin. "Bjorn," she whispers. "If you can hear me, blink." Nothing. The sea behind him stretches out like a pane of crystal, capturing the moonlight in ripples that no longer ripple. She presses her forehead to his chest, listening. There's a faint vibration, a hum. It isn't a heartbeat. It's slower, deeper, like the sound a conch shell makes when it remembers the ocean. Ursa steps back, fear and wonder mixing inside her. Something beneath the surface is breathing. The frozen waves aren't dead, they're waiting. At the base of the lighthouse, the door stands ajar. The metal hinges are rimed with frost, but when she pushes, it opens easily, as if expecting her. The spiral staircase inside glows faintly blue, lit by something unseen. She climbs, her fingers brushing the walls slick with condensation that should have frozen but hasn't. At the top where the lantern room sits, she finds the source of the light. A single drop of water suspended in midair, trembling, refusing to fall. It glows softly, pulsing with the rhythm of her heartbeat. Ursa stares at it, her breath shallow. "What are you?" she asks, though the words feel too clumsy for the moment. The droplet expands, ripples inside itself, and from within she hears a faint voice, her grandmother's voice, or perhaps something older than the sea. The world has paused to remember its beginning. The voice says, but beginnings and endings often sound alike. The droplet quivers, then divides into 2, then 4, then dozens, until the room is filled with tiny spheres of light hovering in silence. Each reflects a different scene. Her mother's laughter, a storm that never came, a child's cry lost in the wind. The droplets hold memories, not hers alone, but the ocean's. Every wave that ever touched the shore, every life it carried, now suspended in this stillness. She realizes with growing awe that the sea has stopped moving not because it's dying, but because it's remembering. Down below, a faint crack travels through the ice. Ursa rushes to the window and sees the first motion since she awoke, a single wave collapsing into itself, melting back into fluidity. The stillness begins to shudder. The gull above the huts twitches its wings. The smoke from the chimneys unfreezes, rising again toward the sky. Yet Bjorn remains still, his eyes still silver, his hands still locked around the oar. The hum inside his chest grows louder, resonating with the sound now rising from the sea, a low, harmonic tone that feels both holy and vast. Ursa descends a tower, her heart hammering. The ice beneath her feet cracks like thunder. She reaches her brother just as his lips part. A thin mist escapes his mouth, and his voice, layered with something beyond human tone, whispers. She is waking. Who? Ursa asks, though she already feels the answer stirring beneath the earth and ocean alike. The sea moves now, but not with wind. It moves with intent, as if guided by an intelligence older than the stars. The voice within Bjorn speaks again, softer, like the tide against a newborn shore. The sea has remembered her name. The moon flickers for the first time. The frozen gull screeches and flies upward. The stillness collapses entirely, replaced by the roar of returning sound. The waves crash. The wind screams to the fjord, and Ursa falls to her knees, laughing and crying at once. Above her, the lighthouse light burns brighter than ever, spinning slowly, sending beams that pulse like the beat of a heart reborn. The sea breathes. The world moves again. But as the tide retreats, it leaves behind patterns in the sand she's never seen, lines that curve and twist like writing. When she kneels to touch them, they glow faintly under her fingers. The ocean has spoken. Ursa doesn't understand symbols yet, but she feels what they mean. It is not a warning. It is a promise. The night that froze has ended, but something ancient has awakened, stretching beneath the waves, humming in the bones of those who dare to listen. Ursa looks toward the horizon, where dawn should be, and finds instead a shimmer of deep blue light. Alive, waiting, remembering. Revealed that Ursa died as a child, pulled into the depths and returned, marked by gills on her neck and an unnatural calm. It had been during a storm, one that seemed too fierce for the season, when the sea rose higher than cliffs and the air itself smelled of salt and iron. The villagers still whispered about that night, though never when Ursa was near. She had been 7 then, small and stubborn, with a laugh that could cut through fog. Her mother had told her to stay inside, but Ursa had slipped out with a lantern to look for her father's boat. The next morning, they found the lantern floating near the rocks, its flame still flickering, though the girl was gone. The sea, they said, had taken her. They searched for 3 days. Nets dragged the shallows, and men dove until their lips turned blue. On the 4th morning, when the wind finally stilled, they found her body on the beach. Her skin was pale as moonlight, her eyes open and clear, but her chest rose with a breath that should have been impossible. The healer declared a miracle, though the old ones, those who remember the older stories, looked at one another with fear instead of joy. Ursa was alive, but not the same. From that day, she never coughed, never caught fever, never shivered, not even the coldest months. Her wounds healed faster than they should, and her eyes had deepened to a shade of sea green that seemed to move like water under sunlight. When she slept, her dreams smelled of salt, and on her neck, just below the curve of her jaw, 2 faint slits had appeared, thin, symmetrical, almost delicate. At first her mother thought they were scars, the marks of drowning, but as the years passed, they did not fade. Sometimes in the dark they pulsed. Ursa learned to hide them beneath her hair, though she felt their movement when she breathed near the sea. It wasn't pain, more like recognition. The ocean no longer frightened her, it welcomed her. She could walk into the waves up to her shoulders and feel her heartbeat slow, aligning with the rhythm beneath the surface. Fish swam close to her legs, unafraid. Once, a seal brushed her hand and looked at her as if she were kin. The villagers called it luck. The old ones called it something else. They whispered that the sea had claimed her and then changed its mind, that it had returned her not out of mercy, but curiosity. The elders told tales of those the ocean touched, Souls who died in its depths and came back altered, half dreaming, half drowned. They said such people carried the memory of the deep within them, and the deep remembered through them. Ursa didn't ask what that meant. She didn't have to. Every time she looked into the water, she felt something look back. Her mother stopped talking about the night of the storm. Her brother, Bjorn, treated her with a tenderness that bordered on fear. When others played by the shore, she would sit apart, listening. She could hear things the others couldn't. The low hum of tides beneath the earth, the quiet breathing of the sea even on windless days. Once, she pressed her ear to ground and heard what sounded like a heart beating far below the village. The rhythm calmed her, and she began to hum along. That calmness became her most unsettling trait. Even when others panicked, when storms came, when boats vanished, Ursa's face remained serene. Once, when lightning struck the mast of a fishing vessel and the men shouted for her to help, she simply waded into the water, her expression unreadable. The waves parted around her, as though reluctant to touch her, and she reached the wreck with inhuman ease. She brought the men back, one by one, her clothes soaked but her skin strangely warm. After that, some called her blessed. Others cursed. The priest tried to bless her once, placing a cross of driftwood over her chest. The wood splintered. He never tried again. Children stopped teasing her after they saw her hold her breath underwater for minutes without surfacing. Ursa didn't flaunt these things. She simply lived with them, as one lives with the shape of their shadow. Yet deep inside, she knew the calm that wrapped around her like a second skin wasn't natural. It was borrowed from something vast and ancient that pulsed beyond the reach of light. Sometimes, on moonless nights, she would wake to find her lungs burning, her hands trembling for no reason. The air would feel wrong, too thin, too dry, and she would stumble down to the sea, gasping. The moment her feet touched the water, the panic vanished. She would breathe again, though she couldn't say how. The gills would open, faintly fluttering, drinking in the cold, and she would stay there for hours, half submerged, until dawn painted the surface silver. People said she was strange, but they also said she brought good fortune. Nets cast under her name filled with fish. Storms veered away from the bay when she sang. Still, when she passed, they crossed themselves or muttered old prayers. Ursa pretended not to notice. She had learned long ago that silence could protect her better than words. Yet she could never escape the feeling that something waited for her beneath the waves, a presence she belonged to, or perhaps that belonged to her. When the sea froze that night, when time itself stopped and her brother's breath became the hum of another world, she knew that the calm she carried all her life had not been hers at all. It had been the sea's way of keeping her ready. For Ursa had not survived the storm by chance. The sea had chosen her, marked her, and now, years later, it was calling her home again. A one-eyed raven delivers her a pearl glowing from within. It speaks. The sea remembers you, and it's angry. Ursa stares at the bird perched on her windowsill, its feathers slick as oil, gleaming in the pale dawn that shouldn't exist yet. Its single eye, clouded yet alive, fixes on her with unnerving focus. The pearl in its beak hums faintly, like a heartbeat muffled by water. Ursa doesn't move at first. The room smells of brine, though she's miles from the shore. She can taste salt on her tongue with every breath. When she finally reaches out, the raven tilts its head and drops the pearl into her palm. It's warm. That's the first wrong thing. Pearls are never warm. This one pulses like something alive, its light slow and rhythmic, echoing the beat of her own blood. When she closes her fingers around it, the room shudders. The air thickens. For a heartbeat, she hears the sea again, its endless song of hunger and remembrance, and beneath it, a voice that might once have been her own, whispering from impossible depths. The raven croaks, shaking droplets of frost from its wings. "You shouldn't have come back," it says, in a voice rough as breaking shells. Ursa's eyes widen. The sound doesn't come from its beak. It vibrates through the air itself, resonating inside her ribs. She swallows, her voice hoarse. "What do you mean?" The bird's eye glimmers with faint blue fire. "You were meant to stay below. You were meant to sleep." Ursa takes a step back. The pearl in her hand flares brighter, then dims again, as if breathing. "I didn't choose to come back." That is what angers her, The raven replies, "The sea does not lose what is claimed. You slip between her teeth, little fish, and she has never forgiven you." Wind rattles the shutters. Ursa feels her gills tremble, opening instinctively as though the air has turned too dry again. A bead of cold sweat, or perhaps seawater, slides down her neck. "Why now?" she whispers. "Why speak to me now, after all these years?" The raven hops closer, claws scraping the wood, because she is waking. The stillness was her breath held in fury. The tide that froze was her pulse stilled in mourning. You feel it too, don't you? In the quiet between your heartbeats. Ursa doesn't answer. She does feel it. The pull beneath her skin, the ache at the base of her skull, the memory of pressure all around her, comforting and crushing at once. For years she had thought it was imagination, the residue of fear from that night. But now, hearing the raven, she realizes it's been a call. A slow, patient summons. The pearl begins to spin in her palm, faint ripples of light spreading across her skin like tiny waves. She gasps. Inside the glow, she sees flashes. Her child at hand reaching toward a storm, her mother screaming her name, the black water swallowing her whole. And deeper still, something vast, neither cruel nor kind, only endless, cradling her, whispering in a language she once understood. "I don't remember," Ursa murmurs, tears forming without heat. "I don't remember what happened down there." "You're not meant to," the raven says. "Memory is the anchor that keeps the drowned from drifting. You were cut free." Ursa clutches the pearl tighter. "Then why give this to me?" The raven ruffles its feathers, the sound dry as sand. "Because the sea remembers enough for both of you, and she's coming to reclaim what was borrowed." The light inside the pearl flickers again, once, twice, and then steadies into a constant glow. Ursa can feel it pulse against her lifeline, sync it with her heartbeat until she can no longer tell which belongs to her. The air in the room grows heavy with moisture. Droplets form on the ceiling, falling in slow rhythm like the beginning of rain. "She's angry," the raven repeats. "Not at you alone, but at the balance broken. You were meant to bridge the worlds, not hide from them. Now the tide has turned inward. Even the land will drown in memory if it continues." Ursa's breath catches. "What can I do?" The raven leans forward, its beak inches from her face. "You can listen." Then, without warning, it spreads its wings. The gust extinguishes the fire in the hearth. The pearl flares white, blinding, and the raven's form dissolves into the air like smoke. Ursa blinks against the light, and when her sight clears, she is alone. Only the pearl remains, hovering an inch above her palm, dripping faint water that evaporates before it hits the floor. Outside, the village bell tolls once, though no one pulls a rope. The air tastes of salt. The tide, which should be low, crashes against the rocks with a sound like a heartbeat grown furious. Ursa steps outside, clutching the pearl. The sky above the fjord is bruised purple, and the sea seems to rise and fall without rhythm, like something breathing in panic. She feels the pull in her veins intensify, the water inside her blood answering the call of its origin. For the first time, she is afraid not of drowning, but of being remembered. She kneels by the shore, letting the foam touch her skin. It recoils, then returns tentative, like a creature uncertain whether to bite or embrace. The pearl glows brighter in response, casting a reflection across the frozen surf. For a moment, she sees not herself but the child she once was. The girl the sea had taken, eyes open beneath the surface, watching the light fade. "The sea remembers you." The raven's voice echoes faintly from nowhere and everywhere at once. "And it's angry." The horizon trembles. A single wave rises higher than the cliffs, yet does not fall. It hangs suspended, shimmering with impossible life, and within its body, Ursa glimpses faces, ancient, sorrowful, familiar. The sea has remembered her, and soon it will come to collect its memory. Boats return without their crews. Nets bring up memories instead of fish, voices, faces, songs trapped in salt. The first to notice is old Arvid, who lives closest to shore and rises before dawn to mend his nets. He hears the boats scraping against the rocks long before he sees them. 3 of them, each belonging to a man he's known since childhood, drift toward the harbor with their sails torn and their oars missing. They move with strange purpose, gliding against the wind, as though guided by invisible hands. When he wades into the shallows to catch the nearest hull, the water around him hums like a throat clearing before a story too long forgotten. By the time the rest of the villagers arrive, the boats are still bobbing slightly, but empty. The air smells not only of brine and tar, but of something older, like stone that's remembered rain. Ursa stands at the pier, the glowing pearl clenched tight in her fist. The sea stretches silent, smooth as an unblinking eye. Bjorn steps forward, searching for any sign of the missing crew. He pulls up one of the nets still hanging over the side, expecting fish or seaweed. Instead, something soft and luminous spills onto the planks. Shapes that are not shapes, fragments of sound, glimmers of faces dissolving as quickly as they appear. When he touches one, it bursts into whispers, a lullaby his mother used to sing, twisted by the salt until it no longer sounds human. Another villager, Frida, hauls up the second net. It drips with light, pure, liquid memory. She gasps when she sees her own reflection among the strands, younger, laughing beside her father on a summer long gone. She drops the net with a cry. The image vanishes, sinking back into the sea that made it. Ursa kneels beside the boat, running her fingers through the salt water pooling on the deck. It's thicker than normal, faintly luminescent. When she lifts her hand, droplets cling to her skin, trembling like tears that refuse to fall. In them, she hears voices, hundreds of them, whispering half-words, prayers, farewells. Every net, every rope, every piece of soaked canvas holds echoes of lives lived and lost. The sea, it seems, has stopped giving fish. It gives only what it has taken. The raven returns at dusk, perching on the mast of the smallest boat. She's showing mercy. It croaks, "For now." Ursa looks up, her eyes hollowed by sleeplessness. Mercy? Memories are kinder than corpses, the raven says. The sea remembers the faces she swallowed, but she's begun to tire of keeping them. The villagers gather in uneasy clusters. Some weep quietly, clutching each other. Others stand frozen, unable to decide whether to grieve or hope. One by one, they begin to hear things too. Laughter rolling across the water with no mouths to make it. Songs they've forgotten the words to. The sound of doors opening in homes long burned. The fjord hums with recollection. Every ripple of verse in a hymn no one ever wrote. Bjorn grips Ursa's shoulder. "It's you," he says, voice low and trembling. "This began when you touched the pearl. You brought this back." Ursa shakes her head. "No, she did." She looks out at the horizon where the sea and sky meet in a single seamless gray. The tide breathes unevenly now, like a creature struggling to wake. The sea is remembering herself. We just happen to be in the way. The raven hops down from the mast, its talons clicking against the wood. "She's not whole," it says. "Pieces of her are scattered to what you call time. Every forgotten song, every drowned prayer. When you came back, you brought one of those pieces with you. Now the rest are rising to meet it. Night falls thick and heavy. The water begins to glow faintly from beneath, as if lit by an unseen moon. The light shifts, forming shapes that twist and drift just below the surface. Arms reaching, eyes opening, lips moving in silent lament. The villagers back away from the pier, terrified. Only Ursa stands her ground. She hears them now, clearly, the ones the sea remembers. Their voices overlap, tangled and infinite, yet she understands. They do not speak words. They speak belonging. They are not pleading to be freed. They are calling her home. The pearl pulses in her hand, and the gills at her neck flare open. Air becomes unbearable. The salt in it is too thin. She can feel the ocean moving inside her veins, rising to meet the tide beyond. Bjorn grabs her wrist. "Don't," he says. "Don't go to it." She meets his eyes, and for a moment they're the same color as the deep. "I think I already belong to it," she whispers. "I think I always did." He tries to hold her, but her skin has turned slick, impossibly cold. The pearl bursts with light, and for an instant the entire village is reflected in the water, each face mirrored by another, ghostly and pale. Then the reflection changes. The faces are gone, replaced by a vast, open expanse where time means nothing and silence hums with memory. The boats drift away again, as if drawn toward that glowing horizon. This time, no one tries to stop them. Ursa stands at the edge of the dock, the pearl dissolving between her fingers, turning to seawater that runs down her arm like veins coming undone. The tide answers her pulse. The raven's voice echoes above her, softer now, almost mournful. The sea remembers you, child, but she remembers everything else, too. When memory becomes too heavy, it sinks. And with that, the first wave rises, not to destroy, but to reclaim. It lifts the empty boats like toys, folds the shore into itself, and whispers to the village one final word: return. Ursa builds a guardian from wreckage. Lightning strikes him alive. He names himself Halder, remembering a storm that never ended. The night she begins, the world feels hollowed out, windless, colorless, suspended like a held breath. The sea has withdrawn miles from the coast, leaving its bones exposed, driftwood, broken masts, the ribs of ships older than memory. Ursa walks barefoot among them, her eyes luminous in the moon's false glow. She collects what remains, not for survival, but for penance. The air hums with static. Even the sand tastes of thunder. She chooses a wreckage that still hums faintly with salt and sorrow. Each plank she lifts seems to resist, whispering fragments of old voyages, the echoes of captains and songs long drowned. Yet she listens carefully, arranging the pieces, as if following a map only she can see. She drives nails through the ribs of forgotten hull, binds rope made from kelp and hair, carves runes into grain until her hands bleed. She doesn't pray. She doesn't dare. She simply builds, slowly, deliberately, as if creating an apology out of wood and storm. When the figure takes shape, it towers above her, broad-shouldered, faceless, an imitation of strength carved from loss. She sets a shard of a shattered compass where its heart should be, embedding the needle deep into the wood. It twitches faintly, pointing toward the horizon where the sky crackles with approaching lightning. Ursa steps back, breathless. "This is madness," Bjorn whispers behind her, his voice nearly lost to the growing wind. She doesn't turn. Madness is waiting for the sea to forgive us. He starts to protest, but the first flash cuts him off. The sky splits open, a wound of white fire. The strike hits the figure square in the chest, exploding the compass into shards of light. The blast throws both of them to the ground. When Ursa blinks through the smoke, she sees the impossible. The wooden giant standing upright, glowing from within, smoke rising from its joints like breath. The lightning hasn't burned him. It has filled him. He turns his head, a grinding sound like timbers twisting under pressure, and the sockets where eyes should be flared with pale blue light. His voice, when it comes, is not human but layered, like waves colliding. What have I been waiting for? Ursa rises to her knees, awe and fear warring inside her. You remember? The figure looks toward the sea, the light within him pulsing in rhythm with the distant thunder. I remember a storm that never ended. His head tilts, listening to something she can't hear, and a voice calling through it. Yours. Bjorn stumbles backward, crossing himself. It's a demon. No, Ursa says quietly. He's a memory. The figure, Halder, though he does not yet know that name, turns to her fully. The wood that forms his chest expands and contracts in a slow approximation of breath. You built me from her fragments, he says. The sea's grief, the bones of her forgotten children. I am their echo made solid. Ursa nods, tears cutting clean lines through the salt on her cheeks. I needed someone who could stand against her. Halder's laughter rolls like distant thunder. No one stands against the sea. Then stand with me, she says. Help me speak to her. The wind rises sharply, whipping her hair across her face. The sky flickers again, not with lightning but with movement. Shadows twisting among clouds shaped like waves. The tide has begun to return. Halder lowers his gaze to her. If you wish to speak to the sea, you must speak her language. I was born with it, Ursa answers, touching the gills at her neck. They flare, shivering with each gust of wind. For a long moment, neither speaks. The world holds its breath around them, listening. Then Halder kneels, the ground trembling beneath his weight. He presses his vast wooden hand into the sand, leaving a print that immediately fills with water, glowing faintly. Then we begin here, he says, where the storm first found you. Lightning dances across his shoulders, weaving itself into faint veins of blue fire. He looks down at her again, and this time his voice carries warmth through the thunder. Call me Halder. It means Rock of Thor. The storm gave me that once. I kept it so I would remember what strikes cannot destroy. Ursa nods. Then let's remind her that we still stand. The sea roars in the distance, angry, vast, alive. The horizon begins to rise, black and trembling. Halder turns to face it, the light in his chest burning brighter with every thunderclap. The storm has come to reclaim its child, and the child, at last, has built a guardian to answer. Children hum an unearthly tune in their sleep. The melody ripples through Ursa's veins, awakening the drowned side of her soul. It begins softly, so softly she thinks it's only the wind slipping through the shutters. But as the night deepens, the sound multiplies, weaving through the village like fog. Each house breathes it out, a faint, lilting hum, half lullaby, half lament. Ursa rises from her cot, the pearl's faint glow pulsing in rhythm with the song. Her gills flutter open as though tasting the air, and she realizes it's not air at all. It's current, invisible and slow, moving through everything living. She steps outside. All along the coast, windows shimmer faintly, and through them she sees small shapes stirring in their sleep. Children turn on their pillows, lips moving, eyes flickering beneath closed lids. The melody threads them together into a single living chord, a harmony that shouldn't exist in human throats. The notes rise and fall like tides drawn by an unseen moon. Ursa clutches her chest. The tune feels familiar. It isn't memory, it's instinct, a song older than speech, one the body knows even when the mind does not. The water in her blood begins to move with it, trembling, drawn towards something vast. She staggers toward the shore, her steps uncertain. Halder follows, his movements heavy and deliberate, the faint lightning veins across his chest responding to the same rhythm. The sea is teaching them, he says, voice low and distant, like thunder from beyond a mountain. Ursa looks back at him. Teaching them what? To remember what they were before they were born. Her heart aches at the words. She kneels in the sand, the tide barely kissing her knees, and lets the sound fill her. The children's humming carries through the night, and under it she hears another melody, the reply of the sea itself. Together they form something unbearable and beautiful, a song that collapses distance, that binds air to water and blood to salt. Halder kneels beside her, his wooden form creaking. This is how the sea heals herself, he murmurs. Through remembrance. Every child dreams the same dream now, a dream of sinking, of breathing below. When they wake, they will carry her song inside them. Ursa shakes her head, tears sliding down her cheeks. It will destroy them. Perhaps, Halder says, looking toward the horizon where the water gleams faintly with its own light. Or perhaps it will make them whole. The melody deepens, gathering strength. The waves begin to move not outward but inward, curling toward a land in slow, deliberate swells. Ursa feels it inside her bones. Pressure building, blood thickening, heartbeat sinking to something vast beneath her. Her vision blurs. For a moment she sees through two worlds at once. The village and the deep, the sky and the abyss. Above, children sleep. Below, shapes stir, pale, fluid, familiar. She gasps. The figures beneath the waves are not strangers. They are reflections of the sleeping children, echoes made of water and light. Each hum from above sends a ripple below, and each ripple answers back, like heartbeat to heartbeat. Ursa doubles over, clutching the sand. The gills at her neck flare wide, drawing the salt wind until she can almost breathe the sea again. She's calling me, she whispers, the same way she's calling them. Halder places one enormous hand against the ground. The sand darkens, turning damp beneath his palm. You are her voice, Ursa, half of her, walking on land. If she wakes fully, she will flood the world with memory. You must choose, silence her, or join her. The words cut through her like a blade. How do I silence something I am part of? Lightning flickers across Halder's chest, tracing the runes carved into his ribs. You can't, but you can guide her. Ursa looks toward the houses, where the lullaby has grown louder. The sound is no longer peaceful. It vibrates with longing, with the weight of thousands of lost voices seeking to be heard. The air hums with it. Even the stars seem to pulse in time. She can feel the melody twisting around her veins, tugging her downward. She stands, trembling. If I go into the water, she'll take me. Halder rises too, towering, steady, then teach her how to let go. A sudden wave crashes against the shore, higher than any tide. Foam rushes around their feet, and within it, Ursa hears her own laughter, the sound of her voice before death. The drowned child within her stirs, opening her eyes beneath the surface of her mind. For a heartbeat, she is two people, the girl who died and the woman who returned. The humming of the children shifts key, deepening into a resonance that makes the air itself tremble. Ursa walks into the water, every step heavier, the sea greeting her like a long-lost parent. The gills flare again, and the moment her head dips below the surface, the song changes. It centers on her. The ocean glows faintly, veins of blue spreading out from where she stands. Halder follows to the edge, his wooden hand reaching into the surf, and the lightning within him meets the current of the sea. The result is music, immense, wordless, ancient. It shakes the cliffs, it cracks the ice. The children wake all at once. They sit up in their beds, gasping, eyes shining with reflected light. And though none of them have seen the sea, each whispers the same word into the night, the same name carried on the foam and wind alike. Ursa, far out in the water, her silhouette glimmers, neither drowning nor breathing, but transforming. The melody doesn't stop. It grows, winding through the sky, through Halder's chest, through every living thing, until even the stars hum softly in answer. The sea has found her voice again, and it wears a human shape. Far offshore, a colossal whale breaching with glowing ribs guides Ursa and Halder toward the sea's heart. It rises from the deep like the lifting of a world, slow, deliberate, magnificent. The surface fractures around it, light pouring through the cracks of its immense body. Its skin is translucent, like glass filled with galaxies, and through it Ursa can see the rhythm of its heartbeat. Luminous ribs glowing in long pulses, each one echoing the song that hums inside her own veins. The sound it makes is not a call, but a memory spoken aloud. It reverberates through the air, through Halder's hollow chest, through Ursa's lungs. Every vibration feels like the retelling of creation. The villagers who remain on the cliffs fall to their knees, hands over their ears, not in pain, but in reverence. The whale's voice isn't meant for mortals. It's meant for what remembers them. Ursa floats between wave and light, her hair drifting like seaweed around her. The water no longer feels cold. It feels aware. Each current strokes her skin, tasting her, recognizing her. The whale turns one great eye toward her, larger than the boats that once fished these shores. The pupil is deep as night, and within it, she sees motion, schools of memories swimming like stars. Halder stands in the shallows, the tide now reaching his chest. Lightning flickers beneath his ribs in answer to the whale's glow. It calls to us, he says, his voice rolling like the thunder of old storms. Ursa nods, breathless. It knows the way. The whale dives once, and when it surfaces again, the sea around it no longer looks like water. It looks like sky turned inward, a mirror reflecting nothing but the infinite. Ursa feels the pull, a gravitational longing that draws her body forward. Without hesitation, she swims toward the creature. Every stroke feels guided, as though invisible hands beneath the surface are carrying her. Halder follows, his heavy form striding into the surf, his wooden joints creaking in rhythm with the waves. As they near, the whale exhales. The sound is low and endless, a cloud of mist that shimmers with light and scent. Salt, kelp, thunder, and the faint sweetness of rain that never fell. Ursa inhales, and her blood ignites with understanding. This is not just a whale. It is a keeper of the sea's heart, the living bridge between what is drowned and what still breathes. It lowers its head until its glowing eye aligns with hers. A voice blooms inside her mind, vast and mournful, but clear. You remember us. Tears mix with the salt water on her cheeks. I never stopped. Then you must come deeper. She waits where the first silence began. The whale's eye flickers, and a path opens beneath it, a spiral of light descending into the black, as though the ocean itself has exhaled a stairway made of memory. Ursa hesitates only once, glancing back at Halder. The lightning within him flares brighter. Go, he says. You carry the blood. I will follow as far as I can. Ursa reaches out and touches his chest. The wood hums beneath her fingers, alive with stormlight. You're part of her, too, she whispers. Don't forget that. I never forget, Halder replies, smiling with a crackle of thunder. I was made of things that couldn't. The whale begins to descend, and Ursa follows. The world above fades. Sound first, then color, then the thin concept of time. The deeper she goes, the more the water changes. It becomes luminous, woven with threads of silver light that pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat. She realizes with a kind of awe that the sea's heart isn't a place. It's a memory vast enough to become geography. Below her, the whale's ribs open like gates. Inside, light throbs in slow waves, a massive organ pulsing with the history of everything the water has ever touched. Each beat sends out ripples of song, millions of whispers layered together. Ursa hears them all. Sailors calling home, mothers weeping, children laughing beneath waves that took them too soon. None of it is sorrow, it's continuity. She swims closer, and the water presses against her, heavy and intimate. Her gills flare, her lungs surrender. She no longer breathes air. She breathes memory. Every inhale fills her with images. The dawn of first rain, rivers carving the bones of mountains, the sea dreaming itself awake. Halder's form follows above her, his lightning dimming as he sinks. He cannot go as deep as she can. The sea accepts him reluctantly, like an outsider who bears too much fire. Still, his eyes glow faintly, watching, protecting. At last, the whale stops. It hovers in the blue-black void before a radiant fissure in the seafloor. From within, something glows, an enormous pulse of living light. Slow and serene, each beat shaking the water like thunder trapped in glass. The whale's voice fills her mind once more. The heart has waited for its voice. Sing, child of tide and air. Ursa hesitates. Her throat tightens. I don't know the words. You do. The whale answers, gentle as surf against sand. You were born knowing. She closes her eyes. The melody that the children had sung in their sleep returns to her, no longer haunting, but complete. She begins to hum, softly at first, then stronger, until the water vibrates around her. The heart responds, glowing brighter, matching her rhythm. Every note she sings carries a memory of the world. The warmth of sunlight on water, the scent of earth after rain, the laughter of those who loved and were lost. Above, Halder kneels beneath the pressure, his chest splitting open with light. Lightning arcs from him to the whale, to Ursa, to the heart itself. The sea becomes a circuit of remembrance, alive, vast, indivisible. When the final note leaves her lips, the fissure blooms open, flooding the depths with radiant blue. The light races upward through miles of darkness, reaching the surface in a single breathless instant. For the first time in centuries, the ocean glows from within, alive, awake, and listening. Ursa floats before the heart, her body trembling but her spirit calm. She can feel its beat inside her now, indistinguishable from her own. The whale's voice fades, replaced by something greater, no longer a whisper, but a welcome. You have returned not to drown, the sea says, but to remember what breathing meant. And in that moment, Ursa understands. The sea had never wanted vengeance. It had wanted reunion. The drowned had not been lost. They had been waiting for someone to sing them home. They find ruins of a sunken kingdom where statues breathe. The dead greet her by her childhood name. The light from the sea's heart fades into something softer, more diffuse, a luminous dust beneath the waves. Ursa drifts through it, as if moving through a dream she once forgot but never escaped. Around her, the darkness clears, revealing shapes half buried in the silt. Arches of coral, broken pillars wrapped in seaweed, fragments of stone carved with runes that glimmer faintly as she passes. The kingdom unfolds in silence, vast and mournful. Towers lean at impossible angles, their windows glowing faintly from within. Statues line the streets, hundreds of them, men, women, children, sailors, gods. Their faces are serene, but not lifeless. The water stirs when Ursa looks at them, as if breath passes quietly through their stone lungs. Halder follows behind, each of his steps shaking the seabed, stirring ancient sand into slow spirals. His lightning is dim now, softened by the depth, but it pulses gently, reflecting in the polished eyes of the statues. "These were not built," he says, voice low. "They were remembered." Ursa turns toward him, confused. "What do you mean?" "Stone does not breathe," he says. "Not unless it once was flesh." The words settle heavily between them. Ursa reaches toward the nearest statue, a woman kneeling beside a broken amphora, her hand raised as if to pour something invisible. The eyes open. The motion is slow and graceful, as though awakening from centuries of sleep. Tiny bubbles escape her mouth, forming words that are more sensation than sound. Ursa, the name ripples through the water, spoken in a voice she has not heard since she was 7. Others begin to move, statues stirring, tilting their heads toward her. The sound of her name multiplies, echoing through the ruins like the beginning of a tide. She freezes. "How do you know that name?" The woman's face softens, stone lips curving into something like a smile. "Because we were there when the sea chose you. You were the first breath she borrowed." One by one, the figures rise, surrounding her. They do not advance in menace, but in reverence, forming a slow, circling current. Their movements create soft waves that lift her hair, brush her skin, and carry warmth that feels startlingly human. She sees faces she almost recognizes. Villagers lost to storms, sailors who never returned, mothers whose names were carved on driftwood graves. "You're—" Ursa's voice breaks. "You're the drowned." A tall figure steps forward, his stone armor cracked with barnacles, his eyes bright with bioluminescent blue. "We are what remains when memory refuses to sink." Halder's hand tightens on the broken sword at his back, instinctively protective. But the dead do not threaten. They bow. The gesture sends a tremor through the water, and Ursa feels the sea's pulse echoing through their forms. The soldier speaks again. "You left as a child, and you returned as her voice. The sea remembers you as she remembers herself. We have waited." Ursa shakes her head, the weight of the moment pressing on her chest. "Waited for what?" The woman answers, her stone fingers trailing through Ursa's hair like seaweed. "For you to forgive her." The water quivers, temperature shifting from cold to warm and back again, as if reacting to emotion. Ursa feels her heart constrict. "Forgive her? She drowned you." "No," the soldier says softly. "She kept us. The land forgets its dead. The sea never does." Their eyes gleam brighter. The current thickens, swirling around her with growing intensity. She feels their memories pressing in, images flashing like lightning through her mind. Cities falling into waves, lovers clinging to each other as ships broke apart, prayers whispered to gods that never answered. The pain is there, yes, but so is peace. So is belonging. Halder steps forward, his wooden frame groaning under the pressure. "You speak as if this is paradise." "It is not paradise," says the woman. "It is remembrance, the place between drowning and rest." Ursa's breath catches. "And why bring me here?" The soldier gestures toward the heart of the ruins, where a massive gate stands half buried beneath coral. It glows faintly, pulsing in time with her own heartbeat. Because the sea's heart lies beyond that gate, but only one who carries both breath and tide may open it. You, Ursa the Shore, her childhood name again. It makes her ache. It tastes of laughter, of salt on her lips, of her mother calling her in from the waves before the storm. For a moment she is that child again, the one who ran into the sea not out of fear, but faith. "I don't know if I can," she whispers. The woman smiles sadly. "You already have. Every time you breathed above the water, and remember below it, you kept the gate alive." The statues begin to hum, a resonance deep and low. The sound vibrates through the coral streets, awakening patterns carved into the stone. Light flows through them, tracing a vast sigil across the ruins. The sea itself begins to glow. Halder looks to Ursa, his voice reverent. They are giving their memory to you. She turns to him, frightened. If I take it, what happens to them? They become silence, he says. The humming grows louder. The statue's light begins to fade, their features softening into formlessness. The soldier bows one last time, his voice dissolving into the current. Take it, child of breath and wave. Let us sleep. Ursa reaches forward, hands trembling. The gate before her pulses once, twice, then opens like a wound in the sea. A light pours out, flooding the ruins, washing over the faces of the dead. They smile as they dissolve, turning into currents of silver that spiral around her. Their memories rush into her. Joy, sorrow, fear, love, all of it flowing into her heart until it feels too full to bear. Halder kneels beside her, the glow from his chest flickering like a fading storm. You've done what no god or storm could, he murmurs. You've made the sea remember what mercy feels like. The last of the light fades. The ruins fall silent again, but not empty. Ursa floats in the still water, trembling, surrounded by echoes of voices that now live within her. Beyond the gate, deeper still, the pulse of the sea's true heart waits, steady, ancient, and patient. And somewhere in that rhythm, the child she once was hummed softly, calling her deeper still. A spectral queen offers Ursa a choice. Remember everything she lost or keep her sanity. Beyond the gate, the sea grows dim again, not with absence of light, but with too much of it. The water shimmers with layers of memory, each one translucent, folding over the next. Ursa drifts through it slowly, Halder behind her, his steps heavier now, his light dimming, as if the pressure itself is feeding on his strength. They enter a vast chamber carved from the bones of something ancient. Perhaps coral, perhaps a creature that once swam here when the oceans were still young. At its center stands a throne woven from kelp and pearl, rising from the seabed like a bloom of light. Upon it sits a figure so still that at first Ursa thinks it's another statue. Then it exhales, and the entire sea seems to move with it. Her crown is a ring of broken shells that gleam faintly blue. Her eyes are not eyes but whirlpools, spinning slowly inward, each filled with fragment of memory. Faces, storms, tears, suns long dead. Her skin is pale as moonlit foam, her hands resting on her knees with the serenity of someone who has waited far too long. When she speaks, it's not with sound but through the current itself. The water around Ursa vibrates with meaning rather than words. You came farther than any of your kind has dared, the queen says. You breathe both my silence and their air. You are what I could never be, both lost and living. Ursa lowers her gaze, overwhelmed by the pulse of power surrounding the queen. Her own gills ache with recognition. You're her, she whispers. You're the sea. A faint smile touches the queen's lips. No, I am her reflection, her consciousness made shape when she grew tired of solitude. I am the memory she divided from herself so she could forget. The words churned through Ursa's mind, too vast to hold all at once. Forget what? Love, the queen says simply. She loved once. The first storm, the first human, the first betrayal. They all live here, buried beneath the calm. And now, through you, she remembers again. Ursa feels the pressure intensify. It's not physical. It's emotional, a flood of everything the sea has ever carried. She sees flashes around her. Children drowning beneath waves that once whispered lullabies, lovers waiting on cliffs until their bones turn to salt, islands swallowed whole. The ocean has never been cruel. It has simply remembered too much. The queen rises from her throne. The movement sends ripples of light spiraling outward, illuminating carvings across the chamber walls. Scenes of people walking on water, of tides carrying souls instead of ships, of a child pulled into the depths and returned breathing. You, the queen says, were her attempt to heal. A bridge, a breath between two worlds. But bridges suffer more than what they connect. Ursa trembles. Then what am I supposed to do? The queen descends until she stands before her, taller than any mortal, yet gentle as drifting kelp. Her touch against Ursa's cheek feels like cool rain. I can give you peace, she says, but peace requires a choice. Ursa's pulse stumbles. A choice. You can remember everything, the Queen says. Every face, every life, every pain the sea has ever known. You will carry it all, and in doing so, you will end her anger forever. But the weight will shatter your mind. You will dissolve into her completely. No more Ursa, only the ocean. The Queen's eyes soften and her voice lowers, tender as surf over sand. Or you can forget. Keep your shape, your mind, your brother, your name. Return to the shore as the woman who survived the sea, not the one who became her. But if you choose this, the sea will forget mercy again. The drowned will remain restless. The tide will always hunger. The water grows very still. Even Haldur's lightning quiets, as though the storm inside him bows to the gravity of a moment. Ursa closes her eyes. The voices inside her, those of the drowned, the children, the ruins, begin to murmur all at once, a chorus of longing. She feels their sorrow, their hope. And somewhere within that cacophony, she hears her mother's voice. Come home, Ursa. You've been in the water too long. Her heart aches. She turns toward Haldur. If I remember, I'll lose myself. If I forget, they lose everything. Haldur kneels beside her, his massive form creaking like an old ship. The storm never ends, he says quietly. But sometimes it learns to sing instead of destroy. Maybe that's all mercy is. The Queen watches them with infinite patience. Ursa feels the current around her slowing, waiting. She opens her hands, and the last remnants of the pearl, the one the raven gave her, drift upward, glowing faintly. Its light is fragile now, flickering like a candle caught in deep water. If I forget, she says slowly, I betray what they gave me. And if you remember, the Queen murmurs, you betray yourself. Ursa breathes deeply. If breathing can still describe what she does here, the water fills her lungs like the gentlest truth, then maybe I can remember differently. The Queen tilts her head. Differently? I'll remember as a song, Ursa says. Not every pain, not every name, just their rhythm, their essence, the melody of what they were. Maybe that's all memory needs to be. Something that moves, not something that drowns. For a long moment, the Queen says nothing. Then, slowly, the whirlpools in her eyes begin to still. A tear, clear as crystal, escapes her cheek and rises upward, glowing as it goes. Then sing, Ursa the shore, the Queen whispers. Sing, and make remembering bearable. Light blooms around them, pure and immense. Ursa feels every voice, every life, every tide flow through her, but instead of breaking her, they harmonize. The water trembles, then begins to hum, a vast, resonant core that stretches from the seafloor to the stars. The Queen's form dissolves into it, smiling as she fades, and Ursa's body glows brighter, her pulse syncing with the rhythm of the world itself. Haldur bows his head, whispering through the rising current. She chose to remember and to survive. The sea's heart beats once, twice, and the entire ocean exhales. When Ursa opens her eyes, she is alone before the empty throne. The Queen is gone. Only a faint shimmer remains, spiraling upward like a song still being written. And in that silence, Ursa understands she hasn't merely survived the sea. She has rewritten its memory, turning grief into song, eternity into movement, loss into tide. Above, somewhere far away, dawn touches the surface. The ocean hums softly in response, alive, calm, and remembering gently. They descend to the deepest rift, where fire burns underwater. Ursa touches it and sees creation replay in reverse. The descent takes days, or perhaps seconds. Time loses its shape here, folding into the pressure. The deeper they go, the darker the water becomes, until even light seems to give up, replaced by a kind of luminous darkness that pulses like a heartbeat. The current no longer feels like water. It feels alive, aware, as if they are swimming through the bloodstream of the world itself. The whale that once guided them remains above, its glow fading to a star in the distance. Below, a trench yawns open, a wound in the seafloor so vast it could swallow entire kingdoms. From its depths rises a glow too warm, too furious to belong to this world. Fire. Real, living flame, blooming in colors no surface I've seen, white, green, gold, and a shade of blue so deep it almost hurts to look at. Ursa and Halder hover at the edge of that impossible light. The heat doesn't burn. It feels like recognition. Halder, his voice subdued, whispers, "Fire in the sea. This is where she was born." The current tugs at them, slow but insistent, and Ursa knows they are being invited. She takes a breath, the water trembling around her lips. "The sea's heart was memory," she murmurs. "Then this must be her beginning." Halder nods, or her dream of one. She descends. The flame flares as she nears, swirling into spirals, flicker with fragments of things that shouldn't exist. Faces made of light, the outlines of creatures whose bones hum with song, rivers flowing backward into stars. She reaches out a hand. The fire bends toward her fingers, curious, and then touches her. It doesn't burn. It remembers. The moment her skin meets the flame, the sea around her vanishes. She stands on nothing, on the edge of everything. The sky is an unformed shimmer, black and gold. The stars move backward, retreating into the void. Mountains unrise, folding into the earth. Forests curl inward and vanish as seeds. Rivers suck themselves dry. The wind rewinds its sigh. Creation is breathing in reverse. Ursa sees the first storm unmake itself. The clouds dissolve, lightning unstrikes, and rain returns to vapor. The oceans shrink back into the veins of the planet, leaving vast hollows where whales once sang. Above it all, the sun dims, swallowing its own light until only its echo remains. She can feel herself unraveling with it, thread by thread. The part of her that was mortal tries to scream, but no sound comes. There is no air, no water, no medium for despair. The flame hums gently within her hand, and she realizes it's not punishing her. It's showing her truth. She sees a moment before all things, a stillness so profound it's almost kind. Within that stillness, a heartbeat, small, hesitant, but insistent. It's not the sea's. It's hers. The fire flickers around her chest, illuminating something inside her, a core that mirrors the light she touches. You were never taken from the world, a voice whispers. It's not the queens, not the ravens, not any gods. It is the voice of existence itself, tired and beautiful. You were the breath between its beginnings. Ursa closes her eyes, tears dissolving into steam. Then why show me this? So you remember what must be remade. The fire expands, encircling her, swallowing her sight. Through it, she sees flashes of herself through time, child, woman, wave, silence, each dissolving into the next. She sees Halder kneeling above, his wooden form cracking but radiant, refusing to leave her. She sees the surface world waiting for dawn that will never come unless she brings it. Then the flame dims. Creation pauses, trembling, as if waiting for permission to exist again. Ursa understands. The world has shown her its first breath, so that she might decide if it deserves another. She reaches forward and places her hands within the fire. Her voice, half air, half current, rises in a whisper. Begin again. The fire flares white. The sea roars back into being around her. Stars burst outward. Time exhales. The water cools and the glow fades to embers that drift upward, becoming plankton, sparks, life. When Ursa opens her eyes, she is kneeling at the rift's edge once more, her hair floating around her like smoke. The flame is gone, but her palms are marked with faint spirals of light, tiny, eternal tides that pulse softly beneath her skin. Halder is beside her, his chest plate cracked, his voice trembling. "What did you see?" "Everything," she says quietly. And then nothing. The sea wasn't born from chaos. She was born from choice. He looks at her, uncomprehending but reverent. "And what did you choose?" Ursa smiles faintly, her voice both human and something older. To remember, but not to regret. Above them, the deep trembles, not in fear, but in awakening. The fire has not died. It has become the pulse of the world. And as it rises through the ocean, the currents begin to move differently, lighter, freer. The sea, at last, remembers how to create again. The ocean's surface inscribes runes of warning. Dreams unchained will drown the sky. At first, Ursa thinks it's only the light, morning refracted through a restless sea. But as she and Halder rise toward the surface, the shimmer takes form. Waves fold into symbols, luminous and deliberate, spelling words across miles of water. Each crest glows briefly before dissolving, only to reform anew, as though the sea itself is writing and rewriting the same truth, desperate to be understood. Halder shields his eyes from the glare. Runes, he murmurs. His voice sounds small against the immensity of the world's pulse. But whose hand moved them? The sea has no hand, Ursa replies, only memory. She floats just beneath the surface, watching the symbols bend and twist. The phrase is clear now, lines of light snaking across the horizon. Dreams unchained will drown the sky. Each word ripples through the world. The air above them quivers, thin as breath. Clouds scatter and reform in spirals mirroring the runes below. The ocean is no longer simply reflecting the sky. It is rewriting it. Ursa feels a pull deep in her stomach, the same sensation that once dragged her into the depths as a child. Only this time, it isn't calling her downward. It's calling her upward, toward the air, toward what comes after the sea. She grips Halder's arm. She's reaching too far, she whispers. The sea is dreaming again, and this time she's dreaming upward. The Guardian looks up at the churning clouds. Lightning flashes silently across their bellies. If dreams reach the sky, he says, then the sky will remember what it buried. The world shudders. The horizon bends. The line between air and water begins to dissolve. Birds fly lower. Wings wet with mist that wasn't there a heartbeat ago. The light of day flickers like a candle in wind. Ursa can hear the boundary unraveling, a low hum that threads through her bones, resonating with the rhythm of the fire that once marked her palms. She presses her hands against the surface. The runes flare in response, blindingly bright, as if greeting her touch. Each symbol vibrates with layered voices, thousands speaking as one. Warnings, prayers, songs of awe. The message isn't meant to threaten. It's meant to prepare. The sea is dreaming without boundaries, Ursa says, her voice trembling. And dreams without limits become storms. From deep below, a rumble answers, soft at first, then growing. The fire she touched at the bottom of the world hasn't gone out. It rises now through the water like molten light, bleeding into the currents, seeping into the sky. Above, clouds ignite, not with flame, but with reflection. The heavens shimmer with inverted seas, waves of air, tides of wind, sky becoming ocean. Halder's wooden form strains under the energy. Cracks glow along his arms. If she unchains her dreams, he warns, there will be no separation left. Sea and sky will merge, and everything will float or fall. Ursa's heartbeat sinks with the pulsing runes. Then I have to anchor her. I have to remind her what dreaming costs. How? She looks up, her eyes glowing faintly blue. By dreaming with her. Before Halder can speak, she dives, head first into the center of the runes. The symbols collapse inward, spiraling like whirlpools of light. The sea folds around her, closing, welcoming, consuming. For an instant, she is everywhere. In the tide's curl, in the air's tremor, in the flame's slow remembering. Inside that vastness, a voice greets her. You freed me, child ashore. Why do you come again? To keep you whole, she answers, though her words ripple into soundless vibration. You've begun to dream too wide. You're drowning the sky. The sea laughs softly, not cruelly, but with sorrow ancient as gravity. I only dream what the world forgets. I dream what humans refuse to. Then dream gently, Ursa whispers. Dream with borders. Dream with breath. The water trembles. Above, the sky darkens, heavy with rain that glows faintly like starlight. The runes shift once more, their shapes twisting into a new phrase. Remember the shore. Halder watches from above, kneeling in the surf. His lightning flickers out one final time, fading into quiet luminescence. The ocean's glow softens. The wind calms. For a moment, everything holds. Sky and sea, dream and waking, perfectly balanced. When Ursa rises again, the words on the surface are gone. Only gentle ripples remain, whispering across the horizon. The sea is still dreaming, but now it hums a lullaby instead of a warning. Halder looks down at her, his voice low with awe. "What did you do?" Ursa's eyes reflect both sky and water, indistinguishable now. I reminded her that even dreams must breathe. Far away, the clouds part. The light that breaks through is new. Not dawn, not sunset, but something in between, something unnamed. And across that radiant horizon, the faintest shimmer remains, as if the ocean still murmurs its last secret to the sky. Dreams unchained will drown the sky, but those who remember will teach it to sing instead. The great whale sacrifices itself to protect them, singing its heart into Ursa's chest. It begins with a tremor deep beneath the waves, a slow, sorrowful pulse that shakes the world like the final note of a fading song. Ursa feels it before she hears it. The water around her warms, alive with vibration. The light of dawn fractures across the surface, as if afraid to settle. Halder raises his head toward the horizon, where the sea bulges outward, swelling into impossible shapes. Then the whale appears. It breaches once, enormous and luminous, its glowing ribs burning brighter than the sun. Its body is cracked with light now, each wound a window into fire that dwells at the world's core. The sound that escapes it is not a cry but a farewell, a chord made of wind and thunder, and every note ever carried by the sea. Ursa clutches her chest. The whale's song is inside her already, resonating through the marks on her palms, stirring the tide within her veins. "She's dying," she whispers. The dream is collapsing around her. Halder steps closer, his massive shadow trembling in the reflected glow. "The sea cannot hold her form," he says softly. "When gods dream, they need something mortal to keep them real. The whale's colossal eye turns toward them. It is vast, ancient, and filled with recognition. In its depths, Ursa sees not herself but all the things that lived through her. The child who drowned, the woman who returned, the voice that made the sea remember. The eye closes once, slowly, and then the whale begins to sing. The sound is unbearable and divine. It ripples through the entire ocean, splitting the water into ribbons of light. Schools of fish scatter upward. Birds scream from the sky, and the clouds themselves shiver apart. The runes that once warned across the waves flare again, not in warning this time, but in devotion. Halder staggers on the force. Lightning bursts from the seams in his body, wild and uncontrolled. "She's giving it everything," he says, barely audible over the roar. "The whale is the sea's oldest memory. She's offering herself to you, Ursa." The realization crashes through her like a storm. "No," she cries, diving forward, arms outstretched toward the creature. "You've already given enough." But the whale's song deepens, impossibly low now, vibrating to the bones of the world. The light from its chest, its heart, breaks free, spiraling upward through the water in a column of pure radiance. It passes through her hands, through her ribs, into her heart with precision of fate. Ursa gasps. Her body arches as the light enters her. The ocean goes silent. For a heartbeat, everything freezes. The waves, the wind, even the faint rhythm of time. The whale hangs amid water, motionless but serene. Then, gently, it begins to sink, its massive form dissolving into streams of light. The glow that remains spreads to the water, threading itself into every current, every tide. Ursa floats where it left her, her hands pressed to her chest. Beneath her palms, something moves, a new heartbeat, slow and immense, echoing the rhythm of the depths. Her breath comes out as steam, her eyes glowing faintly blue. "She's inside me," she whispers. "The whale's song, the sea's first heart. It's here." Halder kneels beside her, the ocean swirling around his knees. His wooden frame hums softly, harmonizing with the rhythm inside her. "Then you are no longer her bridge," he says. "You are her pulse." Ursa closes her eyes. She can hear everything now. The hum of coral reefs far away, the whisper of rain above the waves, the slow exhalation of mountains eroding into dust. Every living thing vibrates with the same hidden song, and she can feel it through her skin. It isn't overwhelming. It's peaceful. But beneath that peace lies a warning. The whale's last words, sung without sound, etched into her heartbeat. Protect the boundary. Do not let the dreams climb. The light from her chest spreads outward in thin golden lines, tracing the water, the sky, even the distant clouds. The rift she once closed below now hums with new energy, not destructive, but alive, a vein of balance between creation and memory. Halder looks toward the horizon. She gave her life to keep the world divided, he murmurs, to keep the sea from drowning the sky. And I will keep it that way, Ursa answers softly, as long as my heart beats. Above them, the heavens still shimmer faintly, remembering what almost was. The sea is calm now, heavy with reverence. The runes fade from the surface, replaced by ripples that glow briefly and vanish, words no longer needed. Ursa lowers her head, whispering to the still water, "Rest, O One. I will remember your song." And far below, in the trench where fire and salt once met, the echo of the whale's voice stirs one last time, neither mournful nor gone, but transformed. It hums through the deep in a single, eternal phrase that every current now carries. I am the tide that sang itself into a heart. Ursa feels the words pulse within her chest, their rhythm matching her breath. The sea is alive again, but this time its heart beats with hers. On an island of petrified sailors, Halder begins to crack, realizing he's not fully alive. They drift for days in a current that never repeats itself. The sea has quieted since the whale's sacrifice, but is not peaceful, merely holding its breath, as though waiting to see whether the world will remember how to balance. Ursa and Halder move through fog that glows faintly from within, like the exhalation of dreams too bright to vanish completely. Then, through the mist, the shape of land appears. The island rises in the water like a scar, gray, jagged, and silent. It smells faintly of iron and salt. When they step ashore, the sand feels wrong beneath their feet. It is smooth as glass, rippled like cooling metal, and scattered across it, half buried, are bodies. At first Ursa thinks they are bones, but when she touches one, she realizes it's stone. Men and women frozen mid-motion, some shielding their eyes, others reaching toward the sea. Their expressions are raw with awe, terror, or surrender. Even their clothing seems caught mid-ripple, solidified in a single eternal gust. Petrified, Halder murmurs, kneeling beside a figure whose mouth is open in mid-prayer. Not by magic, by grief. Ursa looks around, uneasy. Grief doesn't turn people to stone. It does, he says quietly, if it's heavy enough. He presses his palm to the statue's shoulder. The faint light in his body flickers, resonating with something beneath the surface. They came here during the great stillness. He says, the sea must have drawn them to witness what could not be seen. And when they saw, they became what could not move. The air is thick with silence. Ursa walks among them slowly, feeling the weight of countless halted lives. Each statue seems carved in exquisite detail. Every wrinkle, every tear track preserved. They are beautiful and unbearable. She stops when she hears a faint sound, a hairline crack, subtle as a sigh. She turns. Halder stands at the edge of the shore, his enormous frame trembling. Lines of light are breaking across his body, glowing like molten seams. Halder. He doesn't answer. He looks down at his hands. The wood is splitting. Beneath it, not flesh, just hollow light, pulsing weakly, struggling to stay coherent. The runes carved into him flicker, fading and reigniting in uneven rhythm. I thought I was bored of the storm, he says, voice unsteady. But storms end, don't they? He turns his palm upward. The lightning that once lived there sputters like an old flame. What's left afterward is just silence and driftwood. Ursa approaches him, her heart tightening. You're not silence, she says. You're memory. You were built from what endured. He laughs softly, but there's no joy in it, only wonder. Memory doesn't live, Ursa. It only repeats. I was never meant to exist beyond the tempest that called me. The sea's song was my breath, her fury my heartbeat. Now that she rests inside you, he trails off, eyes glowing faintly with blue light. There's nothing left for me to echo. Cracks run up his arms, branching like veins of lightning frozen in glass. Tiny flakes of his wooden form fall into the sand and crumble to ash. Ursa catches one piece before it disintegrates. It's warm, pulsing faintly, like the last ember of a dying forge. "You're wrong," she says. "The sea may rest in me, but you are part of her still. You stood against her, beside her. You kept her dream from drowning the sky. That makes you alive, Halder." He kneels, the ground trembling beneath his weight. "Alive?" he whispers. "Then why do I feel myself fading?" Ursa places her hands on either side of his face. Her palms glow with the faint spiral light left by the whale's heart. "Because you were never meant to last alone. The sea made you to carry her storm, and now she's asking you to let it go." Halder closes his eyes. The sound of cracking deepens. Beneath them, the petrified sailors seem to shift, ever so slightly, as though listening. The island hums faintly, resonating with his breaking form. He looks at her one last time. "Then promise me something, Ursa. Anything. Don't bill me again." The words strike her like a blade made of mercy. She wants to argue, but his expression stops her. It is calm, utterly calm, the serenity of someone who has finally understood their purpose. Light begins to pour from the fractures in his body. His outline blurs, dissolving into radiant dust. The storm light that once defined him flows outward, wrapping around the petrified sailors. The statues tremble, their stone eyes flickering with awareness. The cracks on their bodies begin to glow with the same hue. Ursa steps back, watching in awe. Halder's voice fades into wind. "If I cannot live, then let them move again." The light expands, washing over the island. For a moment, it is like standing within the breath of the whale again. Everything humming in perfect balance, grief and creation intertwined. When the glow subsides, the statues are no longer stone. They are bodies once more, fragile, gasping, falling to their knees on the sand, alive. But Halder is gone. Only his footprints remain. Deep impressions in the crystalline shore, already filling with gentle water that glows faintly, as if remembering his shape. Ursa kneels, pressing her palm into the wet sand beside them. "You didn't die," she whispers. "You became movement." The resurrected sailors weep quietly, their tears turning to tiny pearls where they fall. Ursa stands among them, her heart heavy but full. The sea inside her beats once, softly, sorrowfully, approvingly. And somewhere beyond the fog, thunder rolls, not as a storm, but as a memory saying farewell. A sentient tempest kneels to them, begging forgiveness for the storm that killed Ursa long ago. The fog thickens around the island, trembling as if stirred by breath. The newly freed sailors fall silent. The wind that follows is not ordinary. It moves with purpose, carrying a voice before it, deep and low, older than the concept of weather itself. Ursa lifts her head, sensing the change in pressure, the pull of something vast approaching. The clouds on the horizon begin to twist, drawing together until the sky folds into a colossal spiral. A storm is forming, but not out of rage, out of longing. The sea rises, the waves trembling with recognition. Lightning shivers across the sky in delicate veins, and then something descends from the heart of the maelstrom. Not wind, not cloud, a figure, immense and luminous, woven from vapor and thunder. Its shape shifts constantly, part woman, part sky, part endless motion. When it lands upon the shore, the world bows slightly, as if acknowledging an old god returned. The sailors fall to their knees instinctively. Ursa stands, the glow of the whale's heart in her chest flickering faster, sensing what the others cannot yet name. The storm's eyes are vortices of pure wind, spinning but somehow gentle. She looks directly into them and knows before the being speaks. "You," Ursa whispers, her voice trembling like the surface of a still pond struck by a single drop of rain. "It was you, the storm that took me." The tempest kneels. The axe shakes the sky. Its vast shoulders sag, and its lightning flickers low, humbling itself before her. When it speaks, the wind carries its words in every direction at once. "I was younger then." The voice is not one sound, but many. Thunder layered with rainfall, the sigh of tides, the murmur of torn sails. "I was born of imbalance, of air that envied the calm below. When the sea dreamed you, I envied her too. I wanted to see her face, to touch what she touched. So I struck. The confession rolls through the island like distant thunder. The freed sailors clutch one another, afraid. Ursa's body trembles, but she does not move away. You killed me, she says quietly. There is no hatred in her voice, only astonishment. You were the reason I was taken below. I know. The Tempest lowers its head until the clouds forming its body brush the sand around her feet. The wind swirls gently, no longer sharp, but mournful. And in doing so, I created you, the bridge between breath and wave. I have watched you from the horizon ever since, too ashamed to draw near. I saw the sea's grief. I saw her send the whale. I saw you rebuild what I broke. I am not asking for absolution. Lightning arcs silently across its chest like a heartbeat. I am asking for permission to rest. Ursa stares at the being, at the storm that once tore her from the living world, and unknowingly set everything that followed into motion. Part of her still remembers that night. The cold, the roar, the desperate reach toward a father's voice that never answered. She had feared this storm for years without knowing it had consciousness, regret, or voice. Now, seeing it kneel before her, she feels something entirely different. Sorrow for the loneliness of its existence. The sea forgave herself, she says softly. The whale gave me her heart. Halder gave me his light. The sailors gave me their breath again. But you, she steps closer, feeling the charged air hum against her skin. You've never known what forgiveness feels like, have you? The Tempest form flickers, losing coherence for a moment, its edges dissolving into rain. No. Ursa reaches out. Her hair floats upward in static, her eyes glowing faintly with the same blue fire that had once marked the depths. Then I'll show you. When her fingers touch the surface of its form, the wind stops fighting itself. The rotation of the storm slows. Every droplet of rain pauses midair, glistening like suspended tears. A hum rises, not thunder, not lightning, but the same melody that once flowed to the children who dreamed at night, the song of remembering. Ursa lets the whale's heart within her chest open. Its light spills outward, gold and blue, mingling with the tempest gray. Where they meet, the air shimmers, fire and wind braided together. Creation's first breath replayed in miniature. The storm's voice breaks. You would forgive me so easily. Not easily, Ursa whispers. Completely, the tempest exhales. Its body begins to unravel, dissolving into fine mist that rises toward the clouds. The last of its lightning flickers once more, softer now, tracing her outline in reverence. Then let the sky remember peace, it says, and its voice fades into rainfall. The mist ascends, spreading across the heavens until every cloud glows faintly from within. The wind that follows is different, still powerful, but kind. The sailors lift their faces to the soft rain, unafraid for the first time in their lives. Ursa stands alone at the edge of the shore, rain washing through her hair, eyes half closed. The heartbeat within her chest answers the rhythm of the sky above. The sea inside her hums quietly, satisfied. Halder's footprints glimmer faintly under the water, as though even he hears the storm's final note. And for the first time since her drowning, Ursa feels the world breathe evenly again. Sky and sea, forgiven and forgiving, joined not by violence but by remembrance. Far above, thunder murmurs softly, no longer a roar but a lullaby. Ursa looks into a vertical wall of water that shows her not reflections but possible endings. After the tempest dissolves, the sea grows unnaturally still, as if the world, exhausted by forgiveness, needs a pause before its next heartbeat. The rain stops midair, each droplet hanging in place for a long, trembling instant before sliding upward, defying gravity. The sailors whisper in awe. Ursa walks alone down to the tittle-line, guided by something neither sound nor instinct, only the quiet certainty that there is one more thing the ocean wants her to see. At the island's northern edge, the shore ends abruptly in a sheer column of water, rising straight from the sea, as tall as a cliff and perfectly smooth. It doesn't fall or flow. It simply is a living boundary, clear as crystal and heavy as eternity. Light runs through it in thin veins, like veins of glass filled with the memories of dawns that never came. Ursa approaches, the glow in her chest, the whale's heart, pulses faster. Each beat makes the surface tremble, as though the wall recognizes her. She raises her hand and touches it. The water accepts her fingers without resistance, cool and intimate, and then shifts. At first she sees herself as she is, standing barefoot in the surf, eyes full of tired calm. Then the image changes. In the wall, another Ursa walks away from the sea, leaving it behind forever. She is older, scarred, human again. Her gills are gone. Her eyes are brown instead of blue. She lives in a quiet coastal village where people call her the widow of the tide. She teaches children to fish, to listen to the wind. She laughs. But every time she looks toward the horizon, something in her still waits for a song she can't remember. The vision ripples and shifts again. Another ending. Ursa's standing atop a cliff, arms raised to the storming sky, her voice merging with thunder. She becomes the next guardian, not of the sea, but of balance itself. Her hair turns white as foam. Her skin glows with a pattern of runes. She stands between worlds, never resting, forever awake, half mortal, half tide. The water trembles, and a third vision appears. A quiet sea beneath a black sky. Ursa is gone. The ocean is still, too still, and the stars do not reflect. Without her, the sea has returned to sleep, mercifully at peace, but utterly silent. Humanity forgets the stories of water and wind. The world continues, but flatter, smaller, without awe. Ursa steps back, heart pounding. These aren't memories, she whispers. They're choices. The wall shifts again, showing yet another possibility, one that makes her breath catch. She sees herself dissolving into light, her body no longer solid, her voice carried through every current. The sea and sky merge for a single perfect moment, but they do not destroy each other. They create something new, a third realm, made of dreams and breath, where those who remember kindness more than fear may go when they die, a horizon without end. Halder's faint echo seems to whisper from somewhere unseen, every storm has more than one shore. Ursa presses her palm to the wall again. The water vibrates, recognizing the rhythm of her pulse, and the visions swirl faster. Too many to comprehend. In one, the sailors she saved build a shrine in her name. In another, her story is forgotten, but its echo shapes the winds for centuries. In another still, she returns to her village and grows old, her heart beating with two rhythms until one finally fades. Then, amid the flood of possibilities, one image holds steady. A child, standing where she stands now, barefoot, small, with eyes like the deep. The child touches the same wall of water. Behind her, the sea is calm. She listens, tilts her head, and smiles. Ursa's eyes fill with tears. So it continues, she murmurs. The wall ripples once more, and the voice of the sea moves through it, neither outside nor within her. Every end is a tide. Choose the one you can carry. Ursa looks into the depths, seeing all the versions of herself dissolve and reform like reflections in moving glass. Her hand trembles. If I choose to stay, she says, will the world keep remembering? If you stay, it will never forget. The sea replies, but you will no longer be apart from it. And if I go, then you will forget, but the world will remember you. For a long time, she says nothing. The water hums faintly, waiting, not impatient, but eternal. Ursa finally smiles, small and sad. I think I've been both long enough, she says. Maybe it's time to be neither. She steps forward. The wall opens without resistance. The water folds around her like a curtain drawn by gentle hands. The glow in her chest flares once, gold, blue, white, and then fades. The surface stills, perfectly smooth again. The sailors watching from afar fall silent. The wall slowly lowers into the sea, dissolving until only calm waves remain. The fog lifts. Dawn breaks. Out where the wall once stood, a single ripple moves across the surface, a heartbeat written in water, steady and kind. And though no one speaks it aloud, every creature that breathes, every leaf that drinks the rain, feels the same quiet thought pulse through them. The sea remembers, and so does she. He recalls being part of the ship that carried her father. He had watched her drown. The wind over the island is faint now, a tired sigh after centuries of roaring. The newly freed sailors sleep scattered along the shore, their breaths shallow but steady, their dreams no longer chained to salt or sorrow. Ursa stands at the edge of the sea, alone again, watching the sunrise turn the horizon from blue to molten gold. It feels peaceful, but beneath the peace there's a tremor. The water stirs. A voice rises with the tide, rough, wooden, and low, like the groan of a hull settling after too many storms. It's a sound she knows, a voice she thought gone. Ursa. Her breath catches. The water before her darkens, the foam curling into a faint, luminous outline, the ghost of a man-shaped figure, huge and dimly glowing, carved from memory and driftwood. Halder. She takes a hesitant step forward. You shouldn't be here, she whispers. I'm not, he says gently. Not fully. His form flickers, like moonlight reflected on splintered boards. There's something different in him now. Less storm, more sorrow. His chest, once full of lightning, is hollow light. His voice wavers like the sound of ropes against a mast. I remembered something, he says. Something I wasn't meant to. Ursa frowns. What do you mean? He looks down at his hands that are no longer solid, but shadows of timber and light. I told you I was built from wreckage, from the pieces of ships and storm and memory. But one of those pieces belonged to your father's ship. Her heart stumbles. The waves hush. The Eldinger. Halder continues, the name breaking his throat like driftwood cracking under pressure. It was the one that sailed the night you drowned. He was aboard. So was I. Or rather, part of me was a plank for my ribs, a beam for my spine. I remember the storm, the sea's fury, the moment the sky cracked open. Ursa can see it now, not with her eyes, but through him. The memory rises like a mirage on the air between them. The ship tossed on furious waves, lightning splintering the night. A small figure on the deck, a child clutching a lantern too heavy for her hands. A voice calling her name, her father's voice, cut short by the wind. The ship breaks apart. Water consumes everything. I watched you fall, Halder whispers. I couldn't move. I was just wood and salt and fear. But I saw you, falling, fighting, reaching for the light I couldn't give. When you disappeared beneath the waves, I felt you leave me. You were small, and I was just a broken piece of a ship that couldn't save you. Ursa's knees weaken. The air tastes of rain. So all this time, yes. His eyes flicker brighter for a moment, then dim. When the sea called me back into form, when lightning struck and made me live again, it wasn't her choosing alone. It was your father's grief, his final wish when the ocean took him. She swallows hard. My father... Halder nods slowly. He held on to the plank that became my heart until the water closed over him. He begged the sea not for his life, but for yours. His words, his love, burned into the wood. It became the spark that the lightning found centuries later. That spark was me. I was born from the memory of a man who couldn't let his daughter die. The world feels very still. Ursa presses a hand to her chest, where the whale's heart still beats faintly. You were there, she whispers. You saw it all. I did. She looks up at him, eyes wet. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't remember until now, he says softly. The sea hid it from me, perhaps to keep me moving forward. But when I broke apart on this island, when I gave my light to the sailors, the memory returned. I saw him again. Your father, his face, his voice, the way he whispered your name before the water took him. Halder's form trembles. The surf rises around him like mist. He loved you enough to make me, he says. I think that's why I followed you even after death, even after forgetting what I was. I was meant to finish what he couldn't, to keep you safe. Ursa's tears fall freely now, vanishing into the tide. Then you were never just a guardian, she says. You were a promise. He smiles, a small, cracked thing, beautiful in its fragility. Maybe that's what life really is, Ursa. Promises that learn to walk. She reaches for him, but her hand passes through the fading light. His edges begin to unravel, returning to the sea that shaped him. The tide hums softly, mournfully. Don't go, she whispers. I already did long ago, He murmurs, "This was just my tide returning." He looks at the horizon, where the first true sun in ages rises over calm water. He will be proud of you. You became the bridge he prayed for. And then he's gone. His voice fades like the echo of wood against a distant shore, carried away by the tide. Only a faint shimmer remains where he stood. A shape that looks, for a moment, like a man kneeling in prayer before the light. Ursa stands in the silence he leaves behind, her heart heavy but whole. The sea laps at her feet, gentle now, as if offering comfort. She closes her eyes and whispers to the wind, "Then let his promise rest." The tide pulls back, slow and reverent, and the water glows faintly where her tears meet it, like two promises finally finding each other again. Spirits gather around the whale's bones. They eat memories as offerings. Ursa gives them her fear. The tide had gone out far enough to reveal what no tide should. Bones vast as architecture, the ribs of the great whale glistening like cathedral pillars beneath the sun. Mist curls around them, gold and silver where light meets salt. The air hums faintly, as though every grain of sand still remembers the whale's last song. The sailors stay behind, wary. Ursa alone wades toward the skeleton, the water cool against her shins. She feels the pull before she sees them, shapes flickering between shadow and shimmer, like smoke learning to breathe. Dozens of them, perhaps hundreds, drifting in silence around the remains. They are not ghosts as mortals imagine. They are the sea's oldest fragments, half-conscious tides in human shape, drawn to the place where memory first took form. When she steps closer, they turn toward her as one. The movement makes no sound, but the pressure changes. The air thickens, tasting of forgotten lullabies. One of them, a figure thin as a current and glowing faintly blue, leans forward. Its voice is a ripple rather than a word. She feeds us again. Another answers from behind. Not blood, not breath, thought. The realization settles into Ursa like cold iron. These are the eaters of memory, ancient spirits who keep balance by devouring the weight of what the ocean remembers too clearly. They do not hunger for life. They hunger for what life leaves behind. "What do you want from me?" she asks. The nearest spirit drifts closer, its face rippling like light on the sea floor. "What you keep too tightly," it whispers. "You burn with remembrance." It scars the water. "Give it to us, or it will devour you as you devoured the storm." Ursa hesitates. The whale's heart beats inside her, and every pulse brings with it a flood of memory. Faces, storms, the voice of her father, the cry of the tempest begging forgiveness. All of it lives within her now, alive and heavy. "If I give you these memories," she says, "what becomes of them?" The spirit's mouth curves into something like pity. They cease to wound. They become tied again. She looks down at her reflection, trembling over the bones. For the first time in a long while, she feels afraid, not of death, but of forgetting who she has become. Her fear is the last thing that belongs only to her, the last piece untouched by gods or ocean. The spirits sense it. They circle closer, the water turning colder. "Give it," they chant softly, "and the sea will breathe easier. Give it, and so will you." Ursa kneels among the ribs of the whale. The air trembles. "Then take it," she whispers, "but take only my fear." She opens her hands. From her palms rises something dark and fragile, like smoke made of light. It spirals upward, hesitant, trembling, and the spirits rush forward in silence. They consume it gently, not like predators, but like mourners drinking tears. The moment they do, a warmth spreads through the water, soft and infinite. The spirits glow brighter. The air fills with low harmonies, the sound of countless sighs exhaled in relief. The weight pressing on Ursa's chest evaporates, leaving behind something hollow but peaceful. The whale's bones shimmer faintly, absorbing the glow until they look alive again, glistening like the inside a living creature. The lead spirit drifts close to her face, its eyes calm now, its voice as soft as foam. "You have given us fear. In return, we give you quiet. What does that mean? You will no longer mistake the deep for danger. The sea will never frighten you again. But peace carries a price." Ursa tilts her head, which is... The spirit smiles faintly. "Without fear, you will never run. You will face what others flee, even what you should not. The words settle in her bones. She understands them immediately, and still she does not regret. "So be it," she says. The spirits bow, one by one, until they fade back into water, dissolving like salt into clarity. Only the whisper they're feeding remains, a faint ripple of memory turned to tide. When they vanish, Ursa rises, light-headed but unshaken. The sea feels different beneath her feet, no longer a boundary, but a pulse that knows her name. The sailors watch her from the shore, unable to tell what has changed, but they feel it. The air itself seems braver. She turns her gaze to the horizon, calm where once she might have trembled. "I am not afraid," she says softly, and the sea, vast and endless, answers in the rhythm of the waves. Then come deeper. They reach a lighthouse run by a ghost who translates wind into words. He warns them. The sea dreams of fire because it misses the sun. By dusk, the sailors have built a small raft from the driftwood that once framed the whale's resting place. Ursa stands at its bow, her hair catching the last light of the sky. The sea is calm now, too calm, as if it's holding its breath again, listening for what she might ask next. Behind her, the sailors whisper prayers they do not believe in. They fear the stillness more than the storm. For 3 nights they drift through waters so quiet that even the stars sound distant. Then, on the 4th night, a faint flicker appears on the horizon. A pulse of light, weak but steady, cut into fog like a heartbeat seen through skin. A lighthouse. As they approach, the air grows heavy with the scent of rust and ozone. The tower rises from a lonely rock, its surface covered in salt scars and barnacles. Yet its beacon still turns, slow and deliberate, burning with a light that seems too tired to belong to flame. Ursa steps ashore first. The sand here hums faintly beneath her feet, as if the wind itself is whispering through the stone. "Someone keeps it lit," she murmurs. Inside the lighthouse, the air is cold and thin. The walls are covered in carvings, lines and circles etched by hand, or perhaps by memory. They resemble musical notation or runes stretched into sound. At the center of the room stands a man, tall, translucent, half made of mist. His eyes are pale as fog, and when he breathes, the air bends around him. "You've come far," he says, his voice layered with echoes, as if many winds speak through one mouth. Few follow the sea's memory this deep. Ursa inclines her head. "You're the keeper of this place?" The ghost nods. "I was once a sailor. When the storms took me, the wind refused to forget my voice. It built me a body so I could speak for it." Behind him, the lighthouse windows rattle softly. The wind presses against the glass like an eager messenger. The ghost lifts a hand, and the gust changes pitch, low, then high, until it forms syllables. He listens, frowning. "The wind says the sea is restless," he murmurs. "Her dreams are changing shape." Ursa steps closer. "How can you know what she dreams?" He smiles faintly. "Because the wind is what touches her skin. It hears her in sleep." The air grows colder. The ghost's outline shivers, as if the message he translates carries weight he wishes he could hide. "She dreams of fire," he says finally, "because she misses the sun." The words hang in the air, impossible and tender. Ursa feels the light within her chest respond, an ache of recognition. She remembers warmth. The ghost continues, his voice almost breaking. The sun was the first thing she ever loved. They were twins once, long ago, sky and sea, flame and reflection. But when the world cooled and distance grew between them, she forgot his face. Now her dreams burn to recall it. If she wakes in that desire, she will summon fire again, and the ocean will burn. The wind swirls violently through the tower, moaning through the cracks like a plea. Ursa steadies herself. Then what can stop her? The ghost looks up toward the slowly turning light above them. Remembrance. She must remember without reaching. How do I make her remember safely? "You cannot," he says. "But you can remind her. Teach her what warmth means without flame, love without consumption." Ursa lowers her gaze, the truth heavy in her chest. "You're telling me to become what she's lost." The ghost steps closer, his form flickering in the lantern's glow. "You already are. The fire in your chest, the whale's heart, is not ocean-born. It's borrowed sunlight, trapped in song. That's why she chose you. You carry what she cannot touch. The room trembles as a new gust rushes through, spinning the beacon faster. The light brightens, illuminating the ghost's face fully for the first time. He looks at her with pity, or perhaps admiration. "Be careful," he whispers. "When you walk between sea and sun, you walk where gods once burned." Ursa nods slowly. "Then I'll burn gently." She steps past him toward the spiral stair that leads to the lantern room. As she climbs, the light grows warmer, alive in a way fire should not be underwater. It hums, resonating with the pulse of her heart. When she reaches the top, she places her hands on the glass and looks out. The sea below is stirring again, currents twisting, glowing faintly, as if dreaming in color. The wind carries the ghost's voice one last time. Thin and trembling, she dreams of fire because she misses the sun. Teach her how to remember without flame. Ursa closes her eyes and presses her forehead against the glass. The whale's heart beats faster, and somewhere deep below, the sea turns in its sleep, restless, yearning, alive. And far beyond the horizon, the first sunrise in an age begins to burn. Inside a submerged forge, runes glow in magma. Ursa learns to shape water into weapons of light. The lighthouse fades behind them like a waking dream, its beacon dimming into the mist as if the ghost had folded it back into the wind. The sailors remain behind on the island, unwilling to follow further. Ursa dives alone into the waiting dark, guided by a pull that has no direction, only purpose. The sea moves aside for her now. Its currents recognize her heartbeat as command. The deeper she swims, the warmer the water grows. At first it feels like spring tide, then like breath, then like fever. Faint threads of light appear below, weaving together into a steady crimson glow. She follows it down into the rift that once held the world's first fire. The trench opens like the throat of a sleeping god. There, beneath miles of black pressure, the water gives way to heat. She finds a forge. It isn't a place so much as a phenomenon, a vast cathedral of molten stone encased in shimmering water. Magma flows in rivers beneath the floor, and runes the size of whales pulse faintly in the rock, glowing with ancient purpose. The walls breathe. The air, or what passes for it, vibrates with the rhythm of metal that remembers being stars. Ursa steps onto the obsidian ground, feeling it pulse under her bare feet like a slow drum. Above her, great arches of coralized iron rise and twist into shapes that resemble both armor and prayer. When she exhales, the steam carries light. The forge speaks without words, its voice a resonance in her blood. "Welcome, daughter of tide and flame." She looks around, trying to find a form to address, but the sound is everywhere, emanating from the runes, from the flow of molten fire, even from her own reflection trembling in the heat-distorted water. "What is this place?" she asks. "The sea's memory of creation," the forge replies. "When she first cooled, the world made a pact with the fire beneath her heart. I am that pact. Every god who ever forged a blade, every storm that struck the earth, they learn from me." Ursa feels the heat climb her spine, but it does not hurt. The whale's heart inside her chest hums louder, harmonizing with the forge's rhythm. "Why bring me here?" "Because the sea dreams of fire," the forge answers. "And fire remembers only how to burn. You must teach her how to wield warmth instead of destruction." A fissure opens in the floor before her, revealing a basin filled with molten light. The magma doesn't bubble. It breathes, inhaling and exhaling softly, like a creature in deep slumber. Ursa kneels before it, entranced. The voice deepens. "The first god shaped mountains from this fire. The second shaped iron. You will shape light." "Light!" "Yes, the fire of memory and the water of mercy. When united, they make form that does not kill but clarifies. These are the weapons your sea will need." The basin erupts, not violently, but beautifully. Streams of molten radiance rise like ribbons through the water, refusing to extinguish. They twist around Ursa's hands, forming loops of liquid flame that do not burn. Her fingers tremble. Instinct guides her more than thought. She moves them through the ribbons as though weaving a net, but each stroke leaves trails of luminescence that solidify into pure, shifting shapes. Her first creation is crude, a blade made of glowing water, its edge flickering between substance and reflection. It hums in her hand, light spilling from its surface like breath from a lung. She feels the seas pulse within it. It isn't a weapon for killing. It's a vessel for balance, meant to cut through illusion, not flesh. As she shapes another, the voice returns. What you make here will be remembered. Every wave carries a reflection of your hand. But remember, Ursa, light is truth, and truth burns as deeply as flame. She closes her eyes. The forge shifts its heat, melting the blade's glow into her palms, etching runes of water and fire along her skin. She gasps. Her veins ignite with patterns, spirals and sigils that pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat. When she opens her eyes, the forge is changed. The magma beneath the floor forms symbols that rise and rearrange, until they form a shape she recognizes, a sun encircled by a wave. You have joined what was divided, says the forge. Now you carry the language that neither sea nor sun could speak alone. Ursa raises her hands. The runes on her palms shimmer with living light. When she moves, the water around her obeys, not like an element, but like an old friend. She tests her will, and a sphere of water lifts from the ground, glowing softly. Within it, tiny flames flicker but do not die. They obey me, she whispers. No, the forge corrects. They remember you. You are not their master. You are their memory. The heat begins to fade. The runes on the walls dim to embers. The voice softens. Go now, and carry what you have learned. When the sea awakens fully, she will reach for the sun again. Only you can teach her the difference between longing and love. Ursa stands, the glow from her hands reflected in her eyes. Around her, the molten rivers begin to cool, sealing the forge's wisdom back into stone. She rises toward the surface slowly, the weapons of light spiraling around her in quiet orbit, blades, threads, and circles of shimmering energy made not from power, but from clarity. The heat lingers in her bones, warm and patient, a reminder of what creation feels like when tempered by mercy. When she breaks the surface, the sky greets her with colors she has never seen before, half dawn, half memory. The sea, for once, is calm and watching. Volcanic tides rise, flames blooming from waves. Gods turn their faces away. Even Odin's ravens refuse to watch. It begins as a shimmer, a vibration deep beneath the world's skin. Ursa feels it before she sees it. The slow, seismic heartbeat of the planet quickening, an ancient pulse that hasn't moved since the first dawn cooled into sea. The air above the water sharpens. The waves grow taller, heavier. Each one carries a glint of red, a memory of the forge she left behind. Then, all at once, the horizon ignites. Fire erupts through the ocean's skin, molten spires blooming upward, petals of flame unfolding in slow, majestic violence. The sea screams in steam. Currents boil. Every wave burns with light that should not exist, water and fire locked in impossible harmony. Ursa stares from her raft, her breath caught between terror and awe. This is the dream the ghost warned of, she whispers. The sea is reaching for sun. The sailors behind her pray under their breath. Some cover their eyes, others drop to their knees. The world smells of iron and salt and something older, creation remembering itself. Above, the sky begins to change. Clouds blacken not from storm, but from shame. The gods, those who still linger in their thrones of smoke and gold, turn away. The sea's rebellion is too intimate, too familiar. To see water crave flame is to remember their own divided hearts. And far in the north, perched on the bones of Yggdrasil, two ravens, Hugin and Munin, look down. Their wings twitch once, twice. Then, silently, they lift and fly the other way. They do not report what they've seen. Some truths are too heavy for even thought and memory to carry. The fire spreads, licking across the horizon. Mountains of steam rise, bending light into ghostly pillars. Ursa stands as the raft rocks beneath her. The runes on her skin flare to life, glowing like living stars. She feels the forge's warmth returning, but this time it isn't her own, it's the sea's. The ocean is no longer dreaming of the sun. It is becoming it. Stop, she pleads softly. You'll burn yourself to nothing. The tide answers, not in words, but in sensation. It loves too much, too fiercely. It has seen the warmth it cannot touch and would rather die than forget it. Ursa steps forward. The soles of her feet, scalding where flame meets foam. The weapons of light she forged below rise from the water around her, orbiting like small moons. They vibrate, waiting for a command. Each is a promise of balance, a reminder that creation need not consume itself. Please, she whispers, remember what warmth feels like without fire. The waves hesitate. The flames waver, confused. Steam howls like an argument between lovers too long apart. She lifts her hands, and the runes pulse. Streams of luminous water coil upward, circling her arms like serpents. She draws breath, and the world breathes with her. From her palms, 2 spirals of liquid light unfurl, one cool, one hot. She twines them together in front of her, merging opposites into something new. Neither flame nor tide, but harmony. The sea roars, resisting. The magma bursts higher, forming shapes like wings and spires and faces. For a moment, Ursa sees the sun itself reflected in the waves, a colossal, burning eye staring down through the haze, uncertain whether to embrace or flee. "Look at me," she says, her voice breaking through the roar. "I am your warmth. I am your reflection. You are not alone anymore." Her light spreads. The twin currents she holds flow outward, washing over the burning water. Everywhere they touch, the flames transform, not extinguished, but transfigured into radiant gold. Fire learns to float. Water learns to shine. For the first time in an age, the two coexist. The sea quivers beneath her, exhausted. The magma sinks, folding back into its cradle. The light dims but does not die. What remains is a soft, steady glow. Heat without hunger, warmth without harm. High above, Odin's ravens turn in mid-flight. They glance back once. The gods, sensing balance where chaos once reigned, dare to open their eyes again. Ursa collapses to her knees. The weapons of light fade back into her skin, their glow settling deep into her bones. The ocean hums beneath her, a heartbeat slow and strong, echoing through every current. "Rest," she murmurs to the horizon. "You've remembered enough." The sea answers with a single gentle wave that breaks at her feet, glowing gold at its crest. It touches her like gratitude. And far above, in Asgard, thunder rolls without rain, an old god sigh, soft with something like respect. Volcanic tides rise, flames blooming from waves. Gods turn their faces away. Even Odin's ravens refuse to watch. It begins as a shimmer, a vibration deep beneath the world's skin. Ursa feels it before she sees it. The slow, seismic heartbeat of the planet quickening, an ancient pulse that hasn't moved since the first dawn cooled into sea. The air above the water sharpens. The waves grow taller, heavier. Each one carries a glint of red, a memory of the forge she left behind. Then, all at once, the horizon ignites. Fire erupts through the ocean's skin, molten spires blooming upward, petals of flame unfolding in slow, majestic violence. The sea screams in steam. Currents boil. Every wave burns with light that should not exist, water and fire locked in impossible harmony. Ursa stares from her raft, her breath caught between terror and awe. "This is the dream the ghost warned of," she whispers. The sea is reaching for sun. The sailors behind her pray under their breath. Some cover their eyes. Others drop to their knees. The world smells of iron and salt and something older, creation remembering itself. Above, the sky begins to change. Clouds blacken, not from storm, but from shame. The gods, those who still linger in their thrones of smoke and gold, turn away. The sea's rebellion is too intimate, too familiar. To see water crave flame is to remember their own divided hearts. And far in the north, perched on the bones of Yggdrasil, 2 ravens, Hugin and Munin, look down. Their wings twitch once, twice. Then, silently, they lift and fly the other way. They do not report what they've seen. Some truths are too heavy for even thought and memory to carry. The fire spreads, licking across the horizon. Mountains of steam rise, bending light into ghostly pillars. Ursa stands as a raft rocks beneath her. The runes on her skin flare to life, glowing like living stars. She feels the forge's warmth returning, but this time it isn't her own, it's the sea's. The ocean is no longer dreaming of the sun. It is becoming it. Stop, she pleads softly. You'll burn yourself to nothing. The tide answers, not in words, but in sensation. It loves too much, too fiercely. It has seen the warmth it cannot touch and would rather die than forget it. Ursa steps forward, the soles of her feet, scalding where flame meets foam. The weapons of light she forged below rise from the water around her, orbiting like small moons. They vibrate, waiting for her command. Each is a promise of balance, a reminder that creation need not consume itself. Please, she whispers, remember what warmth feels like without fire. The waves hesitate. The flames waver, confused. Steam howls like an argument between lovers too long apart. She lifts her hands, and the runes pulse. Streams of luminous water coil upward, circling her arms like serpents. She draws breath, and the world breathes with her. From her palms, 2 spirals of liquid light unfurl, one cool, one hot. She twines them together in front of her, merging opposites into something new. Neither flame nor tide, but harmony. The sea roars, resisting. The magma bursts higher, forming shapes like wings and spires and faces. For a moment, Ursa sees the sun itself reflected in the waves. A colossal, burning eye staring down to the haze, uncertain whether to embrace or flee. Look at me, she says, her voice breaking through the roar. I am your warmth. I am your reflection. You are not alone anymore. Her light spreads. The twin currents she holds flow outward, washing over the burning water. Everywhere they touch, the flames transform, not extinguished, but transfigured into radiant gold. Fire learns to float. Water learns to shine. For the first time in an age, the two coexist. The sea quivers beneath her, exhausted. The magma sinks, folding back into its cradle. The light dims but does not die. What remains is a soft, steady glow, heat without hunger, warmth without harm. High above, Odin's ravens turn in mid-flight. They glance back once. The gods, sensing balance where chaos once reigned, dare to open their eyes again. Ursa collapses to her knees. The weapons of light fade back into her skin, their glow settling deep into her bones. The ocean hums beneath her, a heartbeat slow and strong, echoing through every current. Rest, she murmurs to the horizon. You've remembered enough. The sea answers with a single gentle wave that breaks at her feet, glowing gold at its crest. It touches her like gratitude. And far above, in Asgard, thunder rolls without rain, an old god sigh, soft with something like respect. The flame subsided slowly, the world trembling as if exhaling after holding its breath for centuries. Ursa remained on her knees, salt stinging her lips, her eyes reflecting both sea and sun, no longer adversaries, but halves of a single remembrance. The volcanic glow still shimmered beneath the surface, but now it pulsed gently, not as rage, but as rhythm. All around her, the ocean whispered in languages older than wind. The sailors on the horizon fell silent, watching as the waves themselves seemed to bow. For the first time since the dawn of her memory, Ursa felt the sea sleep, not out of exhaustion, but fulfillment. It had found the warmth it craved, not through conquest, but through her touch. And somewhere in the upper realms, where light bends into thought, Odin's ravens turned their black eyes toward the calm expanse and spoke, one to the other. Memory burns, croaked Hagen. Understanding cools it, replied Munin. Then, folding their wings, they flew downward, circling the reborn horizon. The gods, for once, did not intervene. They simply watched, and for a fleeting moment, envied what mortals could create between ruin and forgiveness. Would you like me to continue directly with the next chapter of the saga? What happens after the sea's awakening? Or close this arc with an epilogue that ties together Ursa's journey and what she has become? To escape, they must sail a river that ascends into the sky. Halder sacrifices part of his wooden body to make the boat lighter. When the flames finally sleep beneath the waves, a hush spreads through the world, so complete it feels deliberate. The water, drained of fury, forms vast mirror plains where even wind hesitates to move. Ursa stands in the silence, surrounded by the newly calmed sea, and realizes there is no horizon. The world has folded inward. The only way out is up. The ocean begins to lift. A current rises from the center of the calm, a vertical river of pure, translucent force, spiraling toward the heavens like a thread of liquid glass. Within it drift fragments of stars, the ashes of gods who once looked away. Ursa steps to the edge, feeling gravity loosen its grip. The water hums, calling her. "This is no tide," she murmurs. "It's a path." From behind her comes a sound she thought lost forever. The creak of timber, the slow, uneven rhythm of breath that isn't breath. She turns, and there stands Halder, half whole, rebuilt by memory. His form is patched from driftwood and light, stitched together by the sea's forgiveness. "I couldn't rest," he says, his voice like wind through sails. "Not while you still walk between endings." She doesn't question it. Together, they drag the remnant of a vessel from the shore, the bones of an old longboat, half buried in coral. Ursa whispers to the sea, and the hull reshapes itself, healed by water that glows from her touch. When they set upon the ascending river, it does not sink. It trembles, eager to rise. The sailors who had once followed her refuse to board. No mortal sails upward. One murmurs. The sky devours those who try. Ursa only smiles faintly. "Then let devour me kindly." The boat begins to climb. The current grips them, pulling with invisible hands. Water cascades downward while simultaneously flowing up, a paradox that feels like music. Clouds swirl around the column, pale and slow. The stars above seem to tremble, uncertain whether to welcome or reject these trespassers. But ascent has its cost. The higher they rise, the heavier the boat grows. The air thins. The light thickens into something tangible, pressing against them like judgment. The wood groans. Ursa braces herself against the mast as Halder kneels beside her, his joints cracking under strain. "She wants us to prove we belong," he says quietly. "Who?" "The sky," he answers. She's never forgiven the sea for falling. The current grows brighter, searing their eyes. The hull begins to splinter. Halder touches the rail, his fingers leaving trails of fire. He looks at her with a calm that chills her more than any storm. "You can't carry both of us," he says simply. Ursa's eyes widen. "Don't." He smiles, that same quiet, resigned smile she's seen before, carved from love rather than despair. It's not death this time, just subtraction. Before she can stop him, he stands and places both hands on his chest. Light leaks through the cracks in his frame. The runes along his ribs ignite. He tears free a portion of himself, the broad planks that once formed his back, his spine, his strength, and lays them across the deck. They melt into the wood, fusing with the hull. The boat brightens, growing lighter, faster. "Halder," she cries. "You'll fade." "I was built to bear weight," he says, voice fading like surf on stone. "Now I'll bear you upward." His lower half dissolves into motes of light, merging with the boat's timbers. The vessel straightens, its creaks turning into a steady hum. The current embraces it, accelerating the climb. Ursa falls to her knees, gripping the rail. Tears slip upward, carried away by the pull of the sky. "I'll bring you back," she vows, her voice trembling. Halder's voice answers through the mast, deep and kind. "You already have, every time you look forward instead of down." The river glows now like a pillar of dawn reborn. Above them, the sky opens, not blue, but silver, rippling like the surface of a reverse sea. The boat pierces through it, leaving trails of gold in its wake. Below, the ocean watches, patient and proud. When they break the upper layer, gravity releases them completely. For a moment, they're suspended between realms. The boat half water, half fire, sailing through the mirrored firmament. Ursa feels no fear, only gratitude. "Halder," she whispers, touching the deck. "You become the bridge again." A soft laugh ripples through boards. Someone has to keep the gods from falling asleep. And with that, the boat continues a descent, climbing toward the quiet heart of the sky, where light waits to remember what warmth once meant. The pearl shatters, a pulse of molten light spreads. Every drop of water trembles. Life remembers itself. It happens at the summit of the sky. Ursa's boat, forged from sacrifice and song, crests the last curve of the ascending river. The air here is not air at all, but the breath between worlds. Thin, weightless, trembling. The ocean below is no longer visible. It a memory written in color and pulse. The pearl, long dormant in her breast since the raven's gift, begins to glow again. It has pulsed softly for years, heartbeat, echo, promise. But now it burns with unbearable intensity. Ursa clutches her chest, gasping. She's waking again, she whispers. The sea. The light builds within her, molten and alive. The whale's heart beats in resonance, every pulse merging with the pearl's growing radiance. The two rhythms collide until they become one. And then, with a sound like the horizon cracking, the pearl bursts. The world stops breathing. The molten light spreads outward in perfect silence, a sphere of brilliance racing across sky and sea alike. Wherever it touches, time uncoils. Every droplet of water, every grain of mist, every hidden vein of moisture in the bones of the earth vibrates with awareness. The sea's memory floods through everything that has ever known thirst or warmth. Below, the oceans rise, not in violence, but in awe. Waves stand motionless, glimmering like living glass. Rivers pause mid-course, trembling as if realizing they've been running from home. Rain clouds freeze, luminous and still. Even the dew on distant leaves shivers, remembering where it was born. The pulse reaches farther, deeper. Glaciers dream of being rain again. Springs awaken in desert stones. The sweat of every living thing, human, beast, or ghost, glows faintly for an instant, as if whispering, "We were one body once." Ursa collapses to her knees, half blinded. The air itself tastes electric, like the first spark of creation replayed. She can see them now, the memories swimming inside every droplet. The first fish lifting its head toward the light, the first seed splitting open for rain, the first tear ever shed for joy. She hears voices layered within the pulse, a chorus of all that ever lived. Not speech, not song, but recognition. The sea and all her fragments greeting themselves across the distance of existence. Haldur's voice rises from the deck beneath her feet, deep and clear. This is what she was waiting for, to see herself reflected in all she touched. Ursa looks up. The ascending river has become a pillar of light stretching from ocean to star, the two ends meeting in infinite loop. The gods who turn away now lean closer, faces half-lit by awe and fear. Even Odin's ravens, black against the brilliance, hover at the edge, their feathers whispering like scripture. Life remembers itself. Ursa breathes, every heartbeat, every drop. And in that remembrance, something shifts. The pulse begins to slow, its brightness dimming into warmth. The flames border the sea's longing settle into a gentle radiance that moves through the world like a lullaby. Where it passes, flowers bloom in salt, stone softens, and even the ghosts along the shore sigh in release. The sea, once divided between rage and yearning, has found balance. Her love for the sun no longer burns. It glows. Her memory no longer devours. It nourishes. Ursa rises slowly, her hands still trembling with light. She looks at the sky above and the ocean below, now indistinguishable, a single endless mirror. For the first time since she was a child, she feels no boundary at all. Haldur's voice hums softly through the mast. So this is what happens when the sea remembers. Yes, she whispers, smiling through tears. She remembers and forgives. Above, the gods fall silent. The ravens bow their heads. The molten light fades, but its echo remains forever, woven into the rhythm of every tide, every raindrop, every pulse that dares to call itself alive. And somewhere deep in the endless reflection, Ursa feels the sea whisper one last truth. I dreamed of fire to find warmth. I found warmth, and it was me. A rival force awakens. Eternal ice that refuses rebirth. It freezes gods midward. The glow of the pearl's aftermath still lingers when the first crack splits the sky. It is faint at first, a crystalline shiver, high and distant, as if the air itself has drawn a breath it cannot release. Ursa looks up. The pillar of molten light, that once connected sea, The star trembles, then flickers. The warmth dims. The gods who had leaned close begin to pull back. Their faces turn pale, sharp-edged with dread. From beyond the rim of the world, something cold begins to move. It isn't absence, it's will, the opposite of remembering, a silence that doesn't wait to be broken. It sweeps across the high heavens like frost crawling through glass, devouring the color from clouds, draining the glow from sunlight. The warmth that had woven into every drop of water recoils. The oceans, seconds ago alive with shimmering memory, fall still. The waves stiffen mid-crest. The air forgets to move. Ursa feels it before she sees it. The numbness crawling into her bones, pressing down on her pulse. She turns toward the horizon and sees impossible. A glacier rising not from sea or land, but from reflection itself. It grows outward and downward simultaneously, ice folding into reality like a thought too sharp to hold. The gods atop the firmament react first. Thor reaches for his hammer, but before Mjolnir can spark, Frost climbs his arm, encasing muscle and lightning alike. Freya tries to speak, her lips open mid-command, but her words crystallize into snow that falls around her feet. Odin raises one eye to the encroaching dark. He sees, he understands, and then he too is stilled, locked mid-breath, mid-thought, mid-gaze. The ravens hug in and Munin. Scream once! One sound, two echoes, and freeze in flight. They fall like shards of obsidian through the pale air. Ursa staggers. The ship groans beneath her, the light within us with dimming. No, she whispers. Not again. The world just remembered. A voice answers, low and vast, carried to the stillness like wind that's forgotten motion. Memory is warmth. Warmth is decay. I am what endures. The glacier speaks. Its tone is neither cruel nor loud. It's simply final. Every syllable forms frost on the water. Ice flowers bloom where its words touch. Ursa feels her breath crystallize midair, scattering like dust. You are the cold, she says, her voice hoarse. I am continuance. It corrects the state before fire and afterlife. You call me ice because you still think emotion. I am the world remembering how not to change. Halder's voice hums weakly through the mast, slowed, distorted. She gave too much warmth, he says. And warmth wakes opposition. The sea's dream called her twin. The glacier grows, its roots sinking into the frozen sky, and the still sea alike. It doesn't rage. It simply insists. Where the molten light had carried life's memory, the frost now carries forgetting. Trees turn to crystal. Mountains lose their echo. The sun's edge dulls, its color draining until it glows faintly white, like an old scar. Ursa forces herself to stand. The runes along her skin flicker, struggling between light and numbness. Her hands ache as the heat in her veins retreats. You can't undo what was given, she says. I can still it, replies the cold. Everything that moves eventually breaks. Everything that breathes eventually burns. You mistake warmth for kindness, fire for faith. But stillness lasts. The ice surges forward, a slow avalanche across the heavens. It reaches the frozen gods and swallows them whole, preserving them in perfect stillness. The sky itself becomes glass, each star trapped here, each cloud a memory mid-exhale. Ursa feels her heartbeat slowing. The whale's heart inside her chest beats once, twice, faltering under the frost pull. Her breath forms crystals that ring softly when they fall. Then she remembers. The forge, the fire that learned to live in water, the lesson of balance. She presses her palms together, summoning the last warmth she owns. It flickers weakly between her fingers. If you are the end, she whispers, then I am the reason to begin again. The glacier hesitates. For the first time, it notices her not as prey, but as challenge. Then show me, it says. Its voice spreads across the frozen firmament like thunder made of mirrors, and every drop of light in the world, every ember, every spark, turns toward Ursa, trembling. Her eyes burn with defiance. I will. She steps forward, her feet cracking the ice that dares to hold her. The warmth in her chest ignites. Not the old fire, but something deeper, steadier. A light not of flame, but of will. And as the gods remain frozen midward, and the sea lies still beneath its newborn frost, Ursa raises her hands and begins to teach the world how to remember movement. Ursa mediates between frost and flame, not with weapons, but with story. Her tale softens both. The frozen world listens. The glacier towers above her, silent but watching. Beneath it, the ocean lies locked in place, its waves like glass mountains turn to prayer. The warmth in her chest burns softly, no longer violent, no longer desperate, just present, steady as breath. Ursa stands between them, one born of stillness, one born of motion. The air trembles with the tension of creation, holding its own reflection. The gods remain suspended in the sky, like constellations of regret. Their eyes gleam faintly through layers of ice, their final words reserved mid-plea. Even Odin's single eye glows dimly, a coin of trapped wisdom within the frost. Ursa closes hers. She remembers everything. The drowned girl, the raven's pearl, the whale's heart, the forge beneath the sea, the fire that learned not to devour. And she realizes that every act, every loss, has been a story told to something that forgot how to listen. So she begins to speak. Not loudly, not as command or spell. She simply tells. She tells of a father who built ships of hope and watched the tide betray him. She tells of a whale who traded its heart for peace, and a storm that begged forgiveness because it could finally feel shame. She tells of sailors who turned to stone for seeing too much beauty, and of how grief, when loved enough, became motion again. Her voice drifts through the ice, clear and slow. Each word falls like a seed onto frozen ground, and though the surface does not crack, something deep within it stirs. Once, she says, the sea dreamed of the sun and burned. Then she dreamed of the sky and rose. And now you, cold one, dream of nothing and call that peace. But every dream, warm or still, exists only because the world remembers it was lonely once. The glacier exhales. Frost swirls upward like snow remembering how to dance. A faint voice, vast and brittle, moves through the air. Loneliness is not my enemy. It is my shape. Then let me tell you what warmth remembers. Ursa replies gently. It remembers the sound of your silence and finds beauty in it. It remembers the way ice holds the shape of what it loves, even after it melts. As she speaks, the light within her chest expands, not outward but inward, filling her ribs with golden pulse. The whale's heart and the pearl's echo merge again into one rhythm, half water, half light. She kneels, pressing her hands to the frozen ground. Her warmth doesn't burn the ice. It listens to it. The glacier groans, uncertain. Across its surface, tiny cracks appear, not a breaking, but a breathing. Beneath them, faint light glows, trapped warmth finding voice again. I am not your opposite, Ursa whispers. I am your echo. You are the pause between my heartbeats. Without you, I would burn myself into silence. The glacier shudders, its edges softening. Its voice returns quieter now, as if speaking to itself. Then perhaps I was never meant to win, only to hold the world still long enough for you to arrive. And I was never meant to rule, she answers, only to remember. The sea beneath them sighs, a sound like an old hymn rediscovered. The ice begins to weep, not melting, but releasing what it held too long. Rivers form where there have been none, flowing upward and downward at once, carrying fragments of frost into flame, and flame into frost. The world starts to move again, slowly, gently. The gods blink within their icy prisons. Thor's arm twitches. Freya's lips part in wonder. The ravens thaw mid-fall, wings unfurling in slow motion. Ursa continues to tell the story of all that was broken and healed, forgotten and found, until even silence begins to hum in tune. When she finishes, she looks up. The glacier has shrunk, not destroyed, but humbled. It stands now as a mountain of translucent glass, inside which glows a steady pulse of blue. The fire at her feet has cooled into liquid gold. They mirror each other perfectly. Cold and heat, reflection and radiance, stillness and movement. The voice of the frost comes one last time, soft and weary. Keep telling it. As long as you speak, neither of us will vanish. Ursa nods. I will. The world breathes. The sea ripples. The gods exhale. And in that moment between thaw and flame, between silence and song, all creation leans closer to listen. Ursa's story, the story of what remembered and what refused, spreads through every wave, every gust, every grain of ice. It is not a command. It is not a spell. It is the sound of balance being born again. The ancient sea god, long silent, surfaces to beg forgiveness from humankind. Ursa asks him to dream gently. When the balance settles, flame folded into frost, frost softened by story, the sea stirs again. Not the restless shiver of a waking tide, but a vast, deliberate motion, as if something older than memory is turned over in its sleep. The horizon bends inward. The stars ripple like reflections caught in a giant breath. Then the ocean opens. From its depths rises a shape, so immense it dwarfs even the gods thawing above. It is not a body, but a continent given will, a presence built of shadow and moonlight and the slow pulse of the abyss. The very currents curve around it like ribs. Coral blooms in its beard, whale song hums in its voice. Every sound that has ever echoed beneath water belongs to it. The ancient sea god emerges, eyes deep as trenches, expression unreadable. His movements are slow enough to shape tides. When he breathes, clouds form. When he exhales, continents sigh. The sailors who once followed Ursa fall to their knees on the shore, unable to speak. Even the gods, half freed from frost, bow their heads. For this is the first and oldest of them all, the one who dreamed the oceans into being before thought had a name. He looks at Ursa. His gaze is not cruel, only infinite. Child of the lost tide, he says, and his voice is an earthquake muffled by distance. You have done what I could not. You taught the sea to love without hunger. You have balanced what I broke. Ursa lowers her head. Then why do you rise now? The god's expression shifts, something like grief moving across a mountain, to beg forgiveness. The words travel through the air like a wave turned to prayer. He continues, when I first dreamt of humankind, I filled their veins with salt so they would always remember me. But when they turned their faces to the sun, I grew jealous. I sent storms to reclaim them, floods to remind them who birthed them. And when I grew weary of their cries, I turned my face away. I let them drown without comfort. I left them to believe I was rage, not father. The sky flickers. The sea darkens in shame. Even the frost hesitates, unsure whether to witness or retreat. Ursa steps forward until the god's reflection engulfs her. Her voice is small against his vastness, but it carries weight. You are not the only one who forgot gentleness, she says. The world does not need your punishment anymore. It needs your patience. The god's eyes shimmer, vast whirlpools of sorrow. I no longer know how to dream softly. Ursa reaches into the sea with both hands. The water responds, rising to meet her palms, glowing faintly with the light of the whale's heart still pulsing in her chest. Then let me teach you, she whispers. She closes her eyes. The warmth inside her spreads, not as fire but as memory, of laughter in stormlight, of children playing on shores unafraid of waves, of fishermen singing to dawn. These are the sea's forgotten dreams, the ones that traded for wrath. Ursa gives them back. The god's immense form trembles. The waters around him brighten, every drop catching light as if remembering joy. When he speaks again, his voice is quieter, shaped by tenderness instead of depth. This is what I once was. Yes, she says softly, and what you could be again if you dream gently. The god looks down at her, his vast shadow shuddering. The storm in his eyes fades to stillness. Then humankind is forgiven. No, Ursa says, lifting her gaze. Forgiveness is not a gift to give. It's a tide to share. He studies her for a long, endless moment, then bows his great head, a movement so slow it changes the shape of clouds. Then let the tide return. The sea responds. Across the world, the frozen waters thaw, rivers find their courses, and the whisper of life begins anew. Coral lights up along the ocean floor, reefs humming like newly tuned strings. In distant fjords, fishermen wake from dreams of drowning to find the waves calm as mirrors. The god sighs, the sound like the whole ocean exhaling. I will dream gently, he vows, his words rumbling through the bones of the earth. And when I forget, let your story remind me. Ursa nods. It will. He sinks slowly back into the depths, his glow fading, leaving behind a sea that glistens not with light, but with promise. The frost retreats to the poles, the fire returns to its quiet beneath the crust, and balance holds, fragile, human, divine. Ursa stands at the water's edge, her reflection no longer a stranger, but an equal. The wind carries a whisper from the deep, faint but certain. She asks the sea to dream gently, and so it dreams of her. He dissolves into driftwood ash, whispering, I will float wherever light touches water. The sea stills as the ancient god begins to fade, not with thunder or collapse, but with a quiet dignity that humbles even the stars. His vast form, which once carved the horizon, begins to unweave. His skin becomes rain, his bones coral, his beard strands of seaweed undone by a tender current. The last thing to remain are his hands, immense, open, resting upon the surface, as if blessing it one final time. Ursa steps forward, the tide curling around her ankles like a farewell embrace. The god's eyes, those twin abysses that once mirrored eternity, soften until they resemble the first calm morning after creation. His voice, now the faintest murmur of tide and memory, reaches her. I have carried too many storms, he says. Too many names. I will let them go now. The sound of his words ripples through the air like wind bending reeds. His shoulders sink beneath the surface. His outline fractures into 1,000 thin lines of driftwood. They scatter across the waves, each piece glowing faintly as if lit from within by the memory of his warmth. Ursa falls to her knees, unable to speak. She watches the remains of God turn into flotsam, 1,000 fragments of story returning to the currents. The scent of salt thickens. The horizon gleams faintly gold, as though the sun itself bows its head in mourning or reverence. The last of the god's form breaks apart, a whisper rising from the shimmer of ash spread across the tide. It is so soft she almost mistakes it for breath. I will float wherever light touches water. The phrase ripples outward, carried by the smallest waves. It passes over her skin, through her hair, into the air. The sentence becomes a living tide, echoing across oceans, threading through rivers and rainfall, through every tear and every drop that has ever reflected dawn. And then he is gone. Only the sea remains, quieter than it has ever been. No rage, no yearning, just rhythm. The driftwood ash spreads thinly across the waves, glimmering as if the ocean itself were wearing starlight for morning. Fish rise beneath it. Curious. The air smells faintly of cedar and ember. Ursa cups a handful of the floating dust in her palms. It feels warm, alive. When she releases it, it scatters and reforms into tiny spirals that pulse once before vanishing. He's still moving, she says softly, just not as before. From the mass behind her, Halder's echo hums faintly, his voice resonating through the wood like a secret shared by tide and timber. That is what gods become when they finally forgive themselves, he says. They stop ruling and start traveling. Ursa rises slowly. The sea mirrors the sky now, seamless, endless. She looks upward, where clouds reflect upon the surface so perfectly that she cannot tell which world is above and which below. Somewhere out there, she knows, the god drifts, carried in the veins of every current, whispering through every reflection, present wherever warmth meets water. Her heart glows faintly, the light of the whale's gift soft and golden. She bows her head and whispers to the calm expanse before her. Then go, old one. The world is wide and the light is kind today. The sea answers with a single, gentle wave that breaks at her feet. Nothing more. But as it recedes, it leaves behind a thin line of glowing ash, tracing the outline of her footprints before fading into the next ripple. Far out on the horizon, where sky and water hold hands, a spark of light flickers, a heartbeat adrift. And as the world breathes again, Ursa hears his final whisper echoing through the calm. I will float wherever light touches water. The ocean repeats it back to her, over and over, until it becomes indistinguishable from the sound of peace. Ursa releases the underwater flame to the sky. Clouds ignite like dawn reborn. For a long while after the sea god's dissolution, the world holds its breath. The waves sway in slow reverence, carrying motes of glowing ash that drift like constellations unanchored. Ursa stands barefoot on the deck, staring into the water that now mirrors the heavens so perfectly that she can no longer tell which side of the world she stands upon. Within her chest, the whale's heart, the last ember of the sea's first dream, beats against her ribs. Its warmth has grown restless. What once harmonized with the tides now strains against her bones, asking to move on, to rise. "It isn't mine to keep," she murmurs. "It was only resting." The sea around her stirs in answer, currents twisting like slow handwriting. She kneels and places both hands upon the surface. Light blooms beneath her fingers, rippling outward in concentric rings. From the depths below, a shimmer of orange and gold ascends, a flame that should not exist underwater, yet burns with the grace of forgiveness rather than hunger. Halder's voice hums from the wooden hull around her, faint but kind. "Be gentle. Fire has never been this high, nor this calm." Ursa smiles faintly. "Then let it rise as I did." She exhales. The motion seems small, yet the world tilts with it. The underwater flame rises to the transparent sea, turning its path into a golden column. It passes to the mirror of the surface without smoke, without sound, simply crosses a boundary that once divided light from reflection. When it touches the sky, the clouds catch, not in destruction, but in recognition. They blush first at their edges, soft hues of amber, peach rose, colors older than sunrise. Then, like breath through silk, the light spreads, igniting the heavens with warmth so pure it feels alive. The sky does not burn, it awakens. The gods, still half frozen within their celestial frost, stir. Thor's hammer cracks its icy sheath. Freya's tears thaw and fall as golden rain. Even Odin's single eye flares with reflected light, seeing once more what he had forgotten, that creation's first promise was never power, but wonder. Across the world, people look up from their shorelines, their mountains, their empty fields. They see the dawn arriving not from east or horizon, but from every direction at once. It flows like breath returning to a sleeping body. Ursa shields her eyes as the fire ascends higher, folding into the clouds until the entire sky glows. No longer day or night, but golden middle, a living memory of both. The sea mirrors it, shimmering with liquid flame. Between them, the world gleams like a single thought completed. Halder's voice trembles through the ship's timbers. "You've let the sea keep its heart, but given it wings." "No," Ursa whispers, watching the colors spread across the sky. I only reminded her that warmth doesn't belong to one realm. It travels. The clouds ripple, releasing small bursts of light that drift downward like petals. Where they touch the water, waves shimmer into translucent gold before fading again. It is as though dawn has been unchained from time, free to bloom wherever reflection lives. Ursa closes her eyes. The warmth brushes her face, the same warmth that once lived only beneath the waves. It feels familiar, like her father's laughter, the whale's song, the storm's apology, all bound into one gentle pulse. From somewhere above, a voice moves to the burning clouds, vast yet tender. "You have taught us all how to rise without consuming." She smiles, tears mixing with the salt air. "Then let there be no more falling." The sky answers with light, soft and infinite. And as the ocean glows beneath her and the heavens shimmer above, Ursa finally understands. This was never about ascent or descent, frost or flame, death or rebirth. It was always about the courage to let warmth travel freely, to let light and water meet and never again part. The clouds drift apart slowly, still burning with their newfound dawn. The light they release is not sunrise, not sunset, but something new, a forever morning, born from the moment the sea learned to share its fire. Morning returns. Waters resume their rhythm. Fish sing faintly in human voices. It happens softly, almost shyly, as if the world itself is afraid to believe in its own renewal. The sky, still glowing from Ursa's released flame, dims into a tender gold that does not fade but breathes. The clouds drift with the calm of something that has just remembered its purpose, to shelter, not to hide. The sea below loosens its mirror-still surface, the tension uncoiling into movement. Ripples bloom where none have dared move for what felt like eternity. The first small waves arrive like shy children entering a sacred room. They roll gently against the hull of Ursa's vessel, testing the shape of sound again. And then water exhales. The tides begin to breathe in rhythm, slow and deep. The world, long suspended between pulse and pause, finds its heartbeat once more. The sun hums faintly behind its veil of light, and the oceans, those great lungs of existence, expand and contract, singing their gratitude in motion. Ursa kneels at the bow, her reflection smiling back at her, not a twin, not a memory, but a companion. The whale's heart in her chest beats softly, no longer a burden, but a rhythm folded seamlessly into the world's new song. She dips her fingers into water and feels the pulse of every current, every drop aware of its own continuity. And beneath that surface, voices begin to rise. They are faint at first, so faint she mistakes them for echoes of wind, but then she hears words. Not the deep, sonorous language of gods or the endless murmurs of dead, but human tones, familiar and near. Fish swim beneath her vessel, hundreds of them, scales catching light in colors that have no names. They move in spirals, darting and circling each other, and as they do, their mouths open, not in silence, but in song. The notes are soft, clear, trembling with awe. They sound like laughter underwater, like lullabies remembered by a voice long unused. Ursa leans closer, her hair brushing the surface, and the melody reaches her fully. It is human, not perfect, not divine, fragile, trembling, but full of hope. The fish sing of fields and hearths, of children chasing tides, of hands that once built boats not for war but for returning home. They sing of storms forgiven, of fathers waiting on docks, of mothers who whispered to the sea not to take too much. Every sound is a memory once lost, returned now as music. They remember us. Ursa whispers. The sea remembers us. Haldur's voice hums faintly from the hull beneath her, his tone warm with wonder. Then her dream is complete. Life no longer fears its reflection. The fish continue their song, and more join, schools of silver and blue, gliding like notes across a living instrument. Even the waves keep rhythm, rising and falling in time with their tune. Each crest carries a word, each trough an echo. In distant fjords, fishermen hear humming beneath their boats. Children along the shore wake to the sound of murmuring tides that speak in lullabies. Rivers far inland tremble with music, their waters glowing faintly as they join the melody. The entire world hums the same refrain. We are still here. Ursa watches, tears blurring her vision. So this is what rebirth sounds like. She murmurs. Haldur's echo answers softly. Not rebirth. Continuation. The same song, remembered differently. She looks out across the glowing sea. The light of her flame still lingers in the clouds, but it no longer burns. It warms. The ocean reflects it without envy. Together they create a world neither sky nor water, but both. The fish begin to drift away, their song fading into distant waves. Yet the sound does not vanish. It lingers, folded into motion of the tide, into the whisper of every ripple. Ursa stands, the morning wind brushing her face, her hair bright in the new light. The air carries a scent of salt dawn and something unnameable, something sacred in its ordinariness. Morning returns, she says quietly, and the world remembers how to move. The sea answers not with thunder or prophecy, but with a gentle sound of life going on, fish singing faintly in human voices, waves breathing in time, and a woman at the edge of mist smiling, because she has finally learned that peace, too, can echo. Ursa becomes the new tide's guardian. She keeps both drownings, hers and the sea's, as hymns of balance. The raven flies one last circle and says, now even silence can breathe. The morning has settled into the kind of calm that feels earned. The light no longer blinds. It simply exists, golden and infinite, as though the world has learned to exhale without fear of what might follow. Ursa stands upon the quiet deck that is also Haldur, though he is now everywhere, his voice stitched into every plank, his memory folded into the rhythm of the waves. The sea, once so wild, moves with the poise of an old creature that has finally learned gentleness. Its tides roll like slow prayers, each crest and retreat a sentence of her name. They no longer seek to claim or destroy. They remember. And Ursa feels it in her blood, the constant pull and release, a song without beginning or end. She understands then that she cannot go back to land. The shore would no longer recognize her, nor she it. She has become something between breath and current, pulse and reflection. The whale's heart that once beat within her no longer glows. It flows, its light dispersed through every tide she now governs. When she closes her eyes, she hears both drownings, her own and the sea's. The first, the child pulled into darkness. The second, the goddess sinking beneath her own desire for fire. They are not tragedies now. They are hymns. They rise and fall in her like waves, balanced, eternal. I am the one who fell, she thinks. I am the one who rose. I am both, so the world may move between them. The air above her trembles. A shadow crosses the light. The raven returns. The same one-eyed creature that once delivered the pearl now drifts down to the glowing air, its feathers catching the gold of the newborn dawn. It circles her once, twice, 3 times, tracing a spiral that mirrors the runes once etched on her palms. It lands on the mast. Her mast is mast, and regards her with the wisdom of endings that have finally come full circle. Scald of tides. It croaks softly. The story is whole. Ursa looks up, smiling. Then tell me, what do the gods say? The raven shakes its head. They do not speak. They listen. For the first time since wind learned to move, they let silence teach them. The horizon glows faintly as the ocean hums beneath. A warmth passes between sea and sky, and even the raven's dark eyes gleam with the light of it. It is done, then, she whispers. The bird tilts its head, thoughtful. Nothing is done. Balance isn't an ending. It's an agreement renewed with every breath. But you've given the world a language for it. It lifts its wings, the sound of their beating blending perfectly with the sound of the tide. And now, the raven says, even silence can breathe. The words spread outward, rippling through air and water alike. The ocean inhales. The wind exhales. Between them, stillness finds motion again. Ursa steps to the edge of the vessel and gazes into the water. She sees a reflection, not as she once was, but as she has become, eyes bright with tide light, hair threaded with sea foam, her body a seamless conversation between depths and dawn. She lifts her hand, and the ocean answers by rising, matching her gesture perfectly. Wherever she moves, the tide follows, not as servant, but as twin. Then let it breathe, she says softly. The raven circles once more, its wings cutting through gold and shadow alike. Then it rises higher, until it becomes only a shape against the endless light. Its voice carries back to her one last time, distant but clear. Guard the hush between waves. There lies the true creation. Ursa stands beneath the boundless sky, her heart steady with both flame and frost, with the memory of drowning and the grace of rising. The sea folds around her in soft applause, whispering her name between its steady breaths. And as the raven disappears into the warmth above, she begins to hum, low and tender, the song of her 2 deaths and 1 endless life. It is a hymn the sea will keep forever, repeating it with each returning tide, so that the world will never again forget that even silence, when love enough can breathe,